Good evening to everyone in the building tonight. As usual, just so we can quickly dive into it, please press a 1 if the sound is coming through clearly. I'm on the big boy mic, so hopefully it sounds smooth. Apologies. I've been very tardy today. I've pushed back the live stream back quite a few times because I needed to prepare a few things. Apologies for that. But we need to get through a few things, man. And I didn't want to over engineer this live stream because sometimes I could be guilty of that, throwing in so many stats and articles and reading all of that. No, because I want this also to be a very simplistic stream. It's going to be an open panel if people want to join and express their thoughts on basically how Black British people can overcome the racism in the UK. And of course, this is in parallel or in conjunction with what happened to a Black British Labour MP, a politician here in the UK. And basically, she's been suspended for saying a few things that people regard as racist remarks. Okay, so we're going to briefly touch on that and go through what exactly she said and how it relates with Black British people in general in terms of our positioning in the society and the issues we might face, right? So that is the core of today's live stream, okay? And I'm going to be kind of frank and probably repeat a lot of the things that I think and feel, right? But I'm obviously going to open it up. I'm not going to labor for you too long. I know it's late here in the UK and I really want to hear your thoughts on this, okay? But with that being said, last night, KB Jones, another fellow UK content creator, he did a great stream on the issue at hand with a lot of great input from a lot of people that called in. So do check out KB Jones. I've linked his that stream and his channel in the description below. So check him out, subscribe to his channel, and listen to his stream all the way through because it was a good discussion, right? And he was the first one at it on this on the point, right? So this is more or less a continuation of that. Okay. But essentially in this stream, I want to ask, how can Black people overcome racism in the UK? And of course, that's even, that's suggesting if we can even overcome it, right? What is needed to prevail? Okay. So I want to jump straight into it, but let me, as a Nigerian, it's very important that I greet people before me. So let me, not be rude and greet people. The first one in was JM Talks channel. Salute to you, bro. Jesse McQuilkin in the building. He says Wild Badger has appeared. Next in, we got Diego Harry, aka Diego F in the building. Salute to you, bro. Good to see you. We got Mystique in the building. Good to see you. Diego F in the building. He says thanks for the congrats comment, bro. I think Diego's talking about the fact that he's finally, I think, published his book or completed his book. So check out Diego Harry's channel as well, man. He's done a great deed in his book, and we can tell with his intel and all the things that he's been looking at and researching. So hopefully, perhaps in the future, we can do a stream about that book as well. So salute to Diego for that. I think that's what he means. Salute to Efechi Michael in the building, the first one to show some support in the house. I really appreciate that, bro. Efechi Michael in the building with the £1 super chat. Salute to you, bro. I really appreciate that. As always, if you want to show some love, show some support, feel free to hit the super chat, super thanks if you can. But a like will do, comments will do, subscription if you're new will do. Okay, salute to everyone and appreciate all the support in the building. And we also have Dej in the building, man. I really appreciate that, bro, with the £5 super sticker, man. Hey, where's my thing? Well, that's kind of weak, but let's try this one. I need to work on that, but I really appreciate the super chats, Dej, man. Always supporting, consistent support. And as always, anyone who shows love in this way, I'm going to put you in the first message underneath this video to show my appreciation, hopefully some promotion as well, okay? So I really appreciate that. Thanks for the £5 super sticker, Dej, man. Appreciate it. We also got JM Talks channel in the building with some super chat love, man. I really appreciate that. Let me Where's the theme? Where's the theme? Where's the theme? Where's the theme? Really appreciate that, JM Talks, man. Salute to everyone who's showing love early, man. I really appreciate that. JM Talks has a channel as well. He's also a YouTube Black British content creator, so check out his channel too. You know, great self-improvement talks, relationship talks, mental health talks as well. So go and check out JM Talks channel as well. Really appreciate that. JM Talks. Sharian Alliance, Allegiance. I think that's Sharian25. What's up? Good to see you. Online account in the building. Good to see you. Diego Ife with a super sticker, £3 super sticker in the building, man. Let me. Nope. That's the one. I really appreciate the support straight up, man. You guys got paid tonight, man. What's the date? It's the 25th. You guys got paid this week, didn't you? But no, I'm joking. I really appreciate it, Diego, man. Salute to you. Always contributing on the panels, man, consistently. So I really appreciate that, bro. Thank you very much. And hopefully we can go through with the, looking into the review of your book, right? I think that would be a good stream, actually. So shout out to Diego Ife, aka Diego Harry in the building. Also a content creator, by the way. So check out his channel as well. And finally we've got Jay Lou in the building. Salute. So we've got the usual suspects in the building, and I appreciate everyone who's live, and I appreciate everyone who's going to come later on to check out this video, because I really want this to be an important or an informative video, okay? Because I believe this is something that's always going to be on the minds of Black British people. Or Black people all over the world. How do you overcome racism, right? And we're going to tie it in with the current situation with Diane Abbott. And before I start, we got more support. So, hey. Sick cleared with the $10, man. An American brother showing love already, man. I appreciate that. He says, the queen is dead. Long live the king. That's true. And that's when's the coronation? Is it in 2 weeks? This May, we got hell of a streak of bank holidays. So we've got the coronation, I think it's May the 8th. We got spring bank holiday, we've got 1st of May bank holiday. May is looking like a nice, relaxed month. Right? But salute to you, Sixliad, for being in the building and showing love. I really appreciate that. Okay. With that being said, I appreciate everyone in the building. I want to bring this up, first of all. And again, I'm not going to over-engineer the live stream with a heap of articles and information, right? But I think I just want to reiterate my thoughts and my beliefs when it comes to racism, right? So forgive me if this has been said before and you have heard this before, but I just need to recite this because I think it's quite important. And I'll tell you why I think it's quite important. So let me just quickly share the screen. I'm not going to fiddle too much with all the sound effects and the background music, man. I need this to be a straight arrow type of live stream. That's why I'm not on camera as well. Sometimes I just need to focus. Okay. What is on screen? Okay. So this is an article or report that I think it's something that I align with, and something that I find to be very important with regards to understanding what racism is. Okay, it's a bit small. Let me try and zoom in. What's going on? Okay, my fingers kind of fiddly. Oh, I'm jumping the gun. I've lost that article. God damn! 1 second, guys. Let me fix up. But basically, I wanted to point this out, and this is something that I believe in, and this is that people often cite that Black people cannot be racist, right? And I know this gets on a lot of people's nerves. People believe that they can't be racist because they don't have institutional power, right? And I agree. Let me be on record to say that I agree. Yes, in The UK, for the most part, black people do not have the institutional powers to restrict other groups of people based on race economically, right? We don't have those institutions, okay? But I just think that there are other forms of racism that other people neglect. And I don't know if this is a willful neglect or maybe it stems from just feeling like, like a extremely powerless, right? And so it's like, no, I don't have no powers to exert over other people, right? But I believe that there are at least 4 types of racism as per this article. Okay, 4 types of racism: interpersonal, internalized, institutional, and structural. Okay, so let me just read it how this article defines it. This is an American article, okay, and I believe over there in America, some might disagree, but I think they have a longer history, in my opinion, with regards to dealing with racial issues. Or it's not a longer history, but it's more potent or historical, right? So racism is a form of oppression based on race. Unlike discrimination, oppression takes into account power. Who is positioned to hold power and who is positioned not to hold power as a result of the way society has been set up and functioned for generations. In other words, oppression takes into account agent and target group membership. People who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color are targets of racism. Okay, so it goes on with the types. Interpersonal racism. This is prejudgment, bias, or discrimination by a white individual toward a person of color. Okay, it expressively uses a white individual. Okay. Institutional racism. Policies, practices, procedures, and culture of an institution or system that work better for white people and cause harm to people of color, often inadvertently or unintentionally. Okay, so we've heard many reports in the UK, the London Met, for example, the police organizations, institutionally racist, right? I think a lot of us can agree and attest to that. A preference for white British people in many cases. And again, like it suggested, indirectly, it could be small things like hairstyle. We've spoke about hair, right? Could be other cultural emblems, right? Structural racism, the history, culture, and current reality of racism across institutions and or systems. When the institutional racism of multiple institutions overlaps to form a web of racism impacting people and communities of color. This includes implicit and explicit social narratives about race, such as those perpetuated by the media. Okay, so movies, films, representation on film. Internalized racism, the internalization of the racist stereotypes, values, images, and ideologies perpetrated by the white dominant society about one's racial group. Okay. It also has internalized racial inferiority, the acceptance and acting out of an inferior definition of self rooted in the historical designation of one's race. Over many generations, this process of disempowerment and disenfranchisement is expressed in self-defeating behaviors. Some examples: colorism, isolation, protectionism, addiction, self-doubt, self-hate, rage, shame, ethnocentrism, anti-blackness, anti-indigeneity. Okay, so again, this is specifically citing American demographics, and it also has internalized racial superiority, the acceptance and acting out of a superior definition of self, rooted in the historical designation of one's race over many generations. This process of empowerment and access is expressed as unearned privileges, access to institutional power, invisible advantages, an inflated self-image based upon race. Some examples: individualism, text is small, is that paternalism. That's interesting. Comfort, control, silence, intellectualization, cognitive dissonance, anti-blackness, anti-indigeneity. Press a 1 if you generally agree that there are multiple forms of racism. If you agree that there are multiple forms of racism, that it's just not one, it's just not systemic, institutional racism. There could be interpersonal racism, meaning you could call someone a white cunt, for example. Let's be frank. Is that a racist statement? Or is it not a racist statement because you're black? That article, to be fair, probably wasn't the best example of, designating the different forms of racism, because it's quite biased and it's Americanized. But hey, I just needed to put out that there are various forms of racism, in my opinion. Okay, so see ones, twos. I think J. Lou is saying black people can't be racist. I think Sharian saying racism amongst people of all ethnicity and creeds. Okay, I think most people generally agree that there are various forms of racism. And why do I bring that up? And this is in relation to Diane Abbott, and I'll try not to live before you too long. I just need to express this in this live stream, okay? The reason why I bring that up is because I think if we allow people to feel or think like they are unable to be racist in any way, it creates a situation of being unaware of one's power, right? And in the very first instance, that power is power of the word, of speaking, right? And I think that a lot of people who, have these, a lot of people from different generations have different ideas of what racism is. And I understand that. But I think speaking to the current, I don't think it's fair to say current generation, but speaking to the younger people, right? Things are different in 2023. In 2023, perhaps you don't see it, but a lot of black people are acquiring some forms of power that is beyond, that is beyond what a lot of people in previous generations had. Right. So, for example, I've worked with and I've worked for quite a few black CEOs and business leaders. Okay. They definitely had the power to racially discriminate against white Asian employees. Right. And I think that in relation to what Diane Abbott said, it's kind of pivotal to understand that, because I think what's going to happen is that black people, and I think it's happening, black people feel like we can say certain things, but it's not racist, and I've kind of touched on that in previous streams. Even with the flurry of a lot of people saying, no, black people can't be racist. Okay. But if you haven't noticed, and this is what I think with Diane Abbott, what is happening is that people are now very, are honing in on black expressions of racism and trying to single them out and trying to make an example of them. And this is what I think happened to Diane Abbott, right? I'm gonna bring up what she said in a sec, but I just need to reiterate as well on the topic of racism. Yeah, I don't feel like a victim, and I know again, some saying that as a black person, especially with all this FBA versus whatever uh, talking points in the atmosphere, I don't feel like a victim. You know, I've risen through the ranks in many avenues here in the UK. You know, and it wasn't by favor, but it was through merit. It was through being valuable. But even with that being said, I will never ever deny that racism exists, and I've never have. Right? But I just simply do not feel like my life is governed by it in the UK. And I think I'm a big supporter of that. Your mindset will determine your outcome in the UK. And this is why I'm very big on mentality. I'm very big on when I detect self-defeatist mentalities, because that is your biggest hurdle you face as a black person. And I'm saying this to you as a black person, as a black British person. You see me. I have an African visage. My voice is deep. I'm a big guy. I'm a stereotype to many people, but I'm still saying this. You know, your mentality will determine a lot in 2023 and beyond. You know, there's a lot more opportunities to succeed than there ever have been. You know, one reason why I was delayed in doing the stream was I was looking for these stats that I've read an article about in the past and I know very well, and it's a sad stat actually. It was a stat that said or suggested that um, the number of black people going into higher education has increased drastically, right? But the numbers of black people who leave with a first class degree, as well as the numbers of black people who drop out of university, is on the right, is high. And the reason why I'm going to probably do a video on that separately, but the reason why I wanted to point that out is, you know, we have access to education where we don't have to pay upfront fees. Foreigners come and they pay like triple the amount that we pay to get into university. So, this poor mental acuity, this low grade rate that seems to prevail in the black community, what is that white supremacy? I need to understand, is that white supremacy that for whatever reason, while a lot of black people are getting access to higher education, they are still their results are lower than other groups. You know, who remembers the EMA? I think that's what it's called. The EMA. It's this payment that you get when you go into college. So for us in the UK, college is between the ages of usually 16 to 18. And back then, when I was going, at least, EMA was like I think it was a weekly or a bi-weekly payment that you get just for turning up, just for studying. Right? All you have to do to get that money, I think you have to attend a certain day, sign a few sheets just to confirm your attendance, and you get the money. My closest friend in college who I was studying with, this Somali guy, okay, a good friend of mine, he would normally stay at home all day getting baked. We had group work. Hey, where are you? Where are you, bro? Nah, I can't make it, bro. Yeah, just high, right? but he would come in on the time or the day when it's time to sign the sheets to confirm that he gets the payment. Is that a systemic issue? As in, is that white supremacy? Is that racism? I mean, hey, it could be. It could be some sort of family, a link between family and society and social outcomes, and maybe feeling like you're not a part of the community. But hey, I know there's also white people with the same lack in motivation who fell off the same way. You know? And so there's really two reasons why I think it's important that black people realize that you know, you do have the powers. Um, you can be racist, you can make racist statements. Okay. One, because believing you have no power becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I hear this often cited by older people, again, from times that have been more restrictive. Like, we're not living in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Two, and again, with Diane Abbott and many other people, what's that YouTuber's name? The big YouTuber who's now fighting and boxing. I forget his name. The British Nigerian guy. Other people are no longer going to tolerate that stance from black people. And like I said, they are actively seeking to make examples of black people who are quote unquote racist towards them. Online account in the chat says, not to sound mean, but those black statistics on education is not accurate. It's a general label. Okay, we can say that, and again, I hear a lot of people with those sentiments when it comes to the bad black stats. But hey, what then are the stats that we are allowed to read out? There is some truth. There's going to be some truth somewhere to those stats, right? And there are many outlets for statistics. Yeah, that's him, KSI. So what did he say? What word did he say? Don't write in my chat now. But especially social media influencers with a certain level of power there as well, and influence. Yes, he says one word jokingly. Yeah, people are going to take it as racial abuse, and you could just get cancelled off of it. But hey, I'm not going to lay before you too long. One thing from KB stream last night that I picked up at the end, which I felt was a great point. I think it was between a dialogue with Diego, Harry, and KB. I think they mentioned that there was a difference between how, who remembers what's her name? I've got it somewhere here. Rupa Huck. Remember last year she said about Kwasi Kwarteng that he is superficially black, right? And people took that as racial abuse, right? Especially the white conservatives. They said, no, that's racial abuse. Right? But I felt that was a good point, because at first I thought that, hey, perhaps this, she's an Asian lady, Asian MP, perhaps she got a linear treatment. But upon reading the her suspension, she got bad treatment as well in terms of the disciplinary motions against her. Right. So look, this is a point that I don't know many of you might not agree with, because I know a lot of you are saying that okay, you just mentioned Jewish people, and I'm going to touch on Jewish people in a sec. Just mention Jewish people, and you get cancelled. Right. But in terms of being fair with regards to saying things that come out as racial discrimination or discriminatory, I think that was a fair judgment. And I think that it's consistent with how Diane Abbott has been suspended too. Right. Let me go deeper into what I'm trying to say. Let me actually bring up. Let's see what Diane actually said. Let's see. Let me stop this. Let me present that. Okay, again, I'm not going to go through too much of the article, but let's see what she said. Where is it? So what did Diane Abbott say? Okay. The MP for Hackney North and Stoke Newington had been responding to a comment which suggested that Irish, Jewish, and traveller people all suffer from racism in the UK. She wrote, "It is true that many types of white people with points of difference, such as redheads, can experience this prejudice, but they are not all their lives subject to racism. In pre-civil rights America, Irish people, Jewish people, and travelers were not required to sit at the back of the bus." And I think that's a fair observation. From what we know, that's true. Right? I'm willing to believe that is true. There is a heavy colorism when it comes to this modern form of racism. She continues, in apartheid South Africa, these groups were allowed to vote. Okay, speaking about the Jewish people, Irish people, etc. And at the height of slavery, there were no white seamen people manacled on the slave ships. Okay, so that's what she said. Let me get. Let me see how you feel about that. Press 1 if you believe it was not racist. Press 2 if you believe if it was racist, what she said. Basically, it seems like she's comparing racism between different groups of people. Okay, I'm seeing ones. Jessica X in the building saying she's right. Ones. There's 1, 2. That is a racist statement. One's not racist. Okay, so I agree that she's right. Right. I agree that, there is a difference. I think this is the key point. There is a difference between prejudice, xenophobia, and racism. Right. A Jewish person, for example, I know many, and I'm going to speak on my experiences. I know many Jewish people. They've changed their Jewish name or Hebrew name, made it sound English, right? And they can pass off as white, right? An Irish person can change the dialect, speak the King's English. They can pass off as white. But of course, black people don't quite have those adaptations, right? The closest we can come to is try to bleach our skin a little bit, try to pack in some weaves a bit or low cuts to hide the naps, right? Try and change the tonality and start speaking like this, right? But we still stick out like a sore thumb, right? But there's one key thing though that I have to say, and again, I emphasize with Diane Abbott. I think we can all agree that I think we don't all lean towards her, right, or are in favor of her. She sometimes come across as cringe with the things that she says, but on this statement particularly, I don't think it was um crazy or out of pocket. Probably wordly, probably the words, badly written. But it's a fair point. But the point is, and it comes to the answer to the question of how can black British people overcome racism. The point is, because they've turned those comments into purely being anti-Semitic, right? The point is, if you ask the question, how can black people overcome racism? It's through power. Right? Like I know a lot of people question the ability for Jewish people to quote unquote cancel people for talking about them in a negative, derogative way, right? Or question the history, right? Or question their the ways they have been discriminated against. Right? But that community they've made it so that if you say one word, if you say one crazy word about us, yeah, we're gonna come on you like a ton of bricks. And to be real with you, I respect that. I'm not even gonna lie, I respect that. Because that's the type of power that so-called black British people need, right? That type of influence is what people need to be respected at the end of the day. And that is the main thing that will make people think twice about things like the microaggressions that a lot of black people experience on a day-to-day, or the snide, sniggering remarks that you might face in your workplace, right? You have no influence. You are like a nobody. Some people believe that in your workplace, speaking about work, some people believe that you might have just been a token hire, right? You don't have any merit of being here. Like, why are you here? So Radical Norman says having power doesn't protect you from racism. Jews get attacked more than anyone. I don't disagree that on an interpersonal level they might get attacked. Especially when they are openly, dressed in their garb, looking typically Jewish. But on the level that matters, right, on the bigger stage, there is a great deal of protection in my eyes. Right. So again, I emphasize with Diane, but hey, the we can clearly see an answer or a solution, quote unquote. You know, who have said something out of pocket and they've got hit? I think Kanye West. Was it Nick Cannon some years ago? Or did he say something else? Corbyn, even Rupert Huck, who said the same thing about Kwasi last year. She said some anti-Jewish remarks some years ago. And again, look, that's power. That's power, man. You know, we've been doing these streams for coming up to a year now. Black British focus streams. It's like it's almost pointless, to be honest with you. You know, because we kind of normally see or pinpoint the issues, but it doesn't seem like there's energy into uh we don't seem to have the will sometimes to put energy where it matters, man. Like, okay, I've worked some of my clients back in the day, a lot of them were Jewish, you know. And if you don't know any Jewish person, you would think that, oh, Jewish people stereotypically are very sensitive and you can't say this. No, 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 that's not true. The Jewish people I was close to, we can joke about anything. Like they can take it on the chin. Um, like they can make all sorts of crude jokes. And I'm not talking about your average everyday person. I'm talking about director level business, like business owners, right? But they have imposed a very, they've imposed a strong code of conduct. I used to live in a Jewish area. Every Saturday, you can see the families together going to the synagogue. That's another key point. They follow a religion, they have a creed, there is togetherness, hallmarks of a community. And to be honest, when I saw that, I was envious of that because they seem to have all the things that I know that if we had, we would be in a far different position. Jessica X says they're heavily protected. Sure they are, but I would say to some degree, black people are protected as well. To some degree, black people are protected, man. You know. So again, that power, for me, from what I see, again, it goes back to the family. It goes back to the ideas of community. Now, of course, we are different people. You know, the so-called Black British people are we're a ragtag group of people grouped into one entity, which is not accurate, right? So we're already coming off. We're already we're already starting from below a platform. Just X says, who loses deals and businesses because they spoke about black people? Well, hey, that's true, but that just showcases that we don't quite have the same amount of power. I don't think that just comes from protection because at the end of the day, this Rupert Hutt can say Kwasi Kwarteng is superficially black and she'll get suspended for almost a year, right? Yeah, we're a motley crew, right? So that is already put us at a disadvantage. But I just think that the very obvious things that we need to do as a community, we just don't seem to have the energy or the will to want to do it, right? That power doesn't come from things like Black History Month or Black Lives Matters protests, you know, or putting on a dashiki and calling yourself pro-Black Pan-Africanist. Like all of that is just symbolic gesture. It doesn't do anything. So when I make a video about why I don't like Black History Month here in the UK, let me emphasize here in the UK, I get a lot of pushback because it's like, nah, it's good, it's good. But why is it good if it's meaningless, if it means nothing? You know, you have 1 month of Black History Month. After when that month is done, you go back to the same old, African versus Caribbean. You know, no mindset into owning a business, like the courage, the belief, the self-determination to do that isn't there. What if that doesn't come, like Black history, all these symbolic gestures, if that doesn't equate into these things, then it's pretty pointless. You can have 50 years of a Black History Month. If it doesn't change anything, it's meaningless to me. Right. And that's why I'm just super hot because I think the base of this mentality, this mental willpower is it comes from your own self-esteem, right? This is why I've always been super hot when I've seen or being made aware of people with self-defeatist mindsets. This is why I don't allow people on the streams or around me when they want to promote the idea that Black people are just innately inferior. I already know the fate of such a person who believes themselves to be inferior. The outlook is not going to be good. Right. So, this whole self-improvement thing, it's not a joke. I know it can seem gimmicky, it can seem kind of, oh yeah, just hit the gym and just, all these minor things. No, but the base of this thinking or thinking like this, it starts from your mind, right? If you spend your days distracted with entertainment, you're in comment sections every day, you're entertained every day. Yeah, you're not gonna think in this way. You're just gonna be blowing in the wind, right? And Black people in a worse situation in the UK in a worse situation than most. Right. So hey man, look, I had a whole load of things to put up, but hey, like I said, I didn't want to over engineer this stream. I just needed to express some thoughts on just racism in the UK in general. But the link, if anyone wants to join, the link is pinned to the top of the chat. If anyone wants to air their views, okay. Feel free. If you disagree with anything I've said, you can air them today. The link's also in the description below the video. But chiefly, if you want to come up, I want to understand, how do you feel about Diane Abbott, and what she expressed. And I want to ask also, man, does anyone feel like the UK is getting more harsher towards Black people? Does the environment seem a bit more critical towards Black people? Like I said, man, I'm just not for the opinion that Black people can't be racist in 2023, because I think if you allow people to believe that, then they're usually going to have behaviors that are lacking um, 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 self-critique, self-awareness, or responsibility, right? And maybe, do you feel racism inhibits you from making it? Do you feel like racism in the UK is just so overwhelming? You feel like, hey, even through all the self improvement, even through, applying yourself and doing all the right things, you feel like you still can't breathe. You still can't surface. Like, feel free to jump on and air your views if you want. I've got one person in the back. 1 second, let me just fix a few things. So again, man, just to round off, like, just my thoughts. They might have been all over the place, right? Let me just round it off. I believe there are various forms of racism. Okay. Um, I believe that black people can make racist remarks. I do not believe black people have, for the most part, the powers in the UK to deploy and institutionalize racism. But some people do, right? And when we're talking about employers, business owners, some people have that power. So we are not, the idea that everyone is powerless is not a good um is not a good train of thought, and it's not accurate. And I just believe that like that type of mentality will hold a lot of people back, and it will cause a lot of upset mistakes, such as in this situation with Diane Abbott, make people feel like they are um free to say certain things that most people are going to find offensive, right? And I believe in the case of Diane Abbott, I don't think a lot of people found it offensive. I think that coming from a black person, like I said, there's a lot of people who are targeting and looking for black examples of racism, right? But let me bring up people. We've got Sharian in the building. We got Diego if in the building. 1 second, guys. Let me just fix a few things. Let me just make sure connection is good. Um, okay, I think it's all good. So 1 hour was approaching. I didn't mean to take it too long. As a solo, but if you want to support, you can like the video, comment your thoughts in the live chat right now or below when we've come off the air. Great ways to support. I really appreciate everyone who's shown support via super chats. Everyone who's in the live stream right now, salute to everyone who's made it. But let's go on to the chat, onto the panel, and see how other people feel. And first up, we've got Sharian in the building. Sharon, how are you doing this evening?
Well, I'm doing wonderful. I'm just here to share my expression. Do I think that racism is a big problem in the UK? Yeah, but it's not really a systemic or issue. But like the thing about it is that like it's a very it's like they're the black folks make up like 2% of the population, therefore so like they're easily considered a minority compared to like any other group in the country. And plus not just blacks but also like other ethnic minorities, but like the thing is like it's not really a thing that people deal with per se on a day-to-day basis, but it does play a role in like the status,
Okay, the status of who? Black people as a demographic, or
yeah, like it can definitely affect people of color, and it can say that it can just cause a big like war against that. But like Winston Churchill is the only dude that in the UK is by far the only one that speaks the truth
Okay. Appreciate that from Sharian 25 in the building. I believe next in the house was Diego Ife. Diego Ife, how you doing this evening, bro?
Yeah, I'm okay, man. How you doing?
Yeah, can't complain, man. Can't complain. Good to have you.
Oh, yeah, it's good to be on, man.
Hey, yeah, not to just throw you in, but I just wanna, I probably said a lot, right? But I just
Mm.
wanna get your viewpoints. I guess, do you find Diane Abbott's commentary to be racist? And why do you think she's been hit with suspensions? If you have an opinion on that.
Sure. In a nutshell, no, I think she was right in
Hmm.
the context of what she said. I don't think if you're looking at it in the cold light of day, there's anything wrong with it. But it was a good opportunity to politicize, you know, the issue. I think a lot of the people that came at her, I think they've used it. There've been different agendas at work. So on the one hand, you have people who are very anti-Labour Party, right? Labour are kind of like a boxer on the ropes, kind of
Hmm.
been on the ropes for a minute somehow, not being able to regain their position, but so they've got a lot of what you call it, like opponents, people that want the party to go out of, lose all relevance essentially, people that are pro-establishment. So this is great. You can push the narrative or double down on the narrative that Labour Party is anti-Semitic, right?
Mm,
So even if it hadn't been her, if there was any room to inference any in quote anti-Semitism, I still think there would have been something. But to the extent of what looks like a witch hunt, I don't think so. Um,
mm,
I do think that there's definitely been a certain level of hatred towards her for years. In fact,
mhm.
going back probably to when she first was elected, to the to her constituency. A lot of
You
people have
think that
wanted
was
to.
because she was a black woman, for the most part? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So in the context when she got elected, that was at a point when so-called black people in the UK were starting to get more concessions, or more so the females or women, to be
mhm,
honest.
mhm,
Bernie Grant being somewhat of an exception because Tottenham was quite a hot Haringey, was quite a
mm,
radical kind of hot area, and in terms of law, is it like civil order? Like he
mhm,
was a he was a key figure in being able to calm down tempers and very influential. But that was his leverage. Yeah. That aside, yeah. So Diane Abbott at that time, she was, I won't call it a diversity hire, but you get my point, right? Like the closest thing in politics. Obviously, she wasn't hired; she was elected. But yeah. So I think certain people questioned, her place. You understand? It was like, oh,
mhm.
this black woman.
Right.
And so from that point onwards, that kind of resent lives, in the long memory of many, you know, white people, shall I say,
Right.
who particularly took offense to, her actually becoming an MP. So,
Mm,
probably for years, anytime there's been an opportunity, like I said it on KB stream, that her
mhm,
son going to private school, never mind, not minding the fact that her ex-husband was wealthier than her
mm,
and Cho is a barrister, high flying barrister. So he gets a say in the matter, but of course this was political. So essentially, what I'm saying is that whenever there's been an opportunity, and I'm not necessarily saying that she's perfect. She's a politician at the end of the day, right?
mhm,
But it seems that she has less room for error than pretty
mm,
much any other um, politician, you know.
mm.
So yeah, I mean,
Hey, do you remember last summer? Right. This
mm,
is a some I need to make a point of. Last summer,
yeah, sure.
Anthony Joshua had his meltdown, right?
Mm,
See, I took a more protective or defensive stance on him, right? Because he gave us, like, since the Olympics, over a decade of good character, at least on the screen, for he's a as a boxer, right? Consistent performances at the very least. Then one meltdown, then everyone came down on him in like a ton of bricks, right?
mm,
And for me, that showcased a fragility that a lot of black people walk in the UK. It's like, again, I coined the hashtag one mistake, right? You can be the perfect exemplar individual, but that one mistake and then you're done. You're all of a sudden the stereotype, you're the criminal, or you're the, one mistake.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that while I'm the person that will say, look, yes, I don't feel like a victim, I haven't shied away from showcasing this fact. I've been quite consistent with that. And I know that probably knocks people off center because, a lot of people like to think more in terms of black and white, right? Like, oh, if you think like this, then you should be like this, then you should be like this. If you don't think like that, you know what I mean? But I think these are shades of gray, right? And I think that it should be made aware of that there is, these complexities, this behavior towards black people, right? To some degree, at the very least.
Yeah. No, sorry, and just to kind of like expand on what you said about Anthony Joshua, when he had that meltdown and people started like laughing at him, ridiculing him, I noticed there was a lot of black people, a lot, yeah, a lot. And obviously the thing is, I got a long memory, so there's certain people who, when he was, when he came up, off the back of Klitschko, and then had his ascent, they were, some of his most vocal supporters, and they moved, if he somehow,
just like that,
if he's somehow able to, have some kind of redemption, if you will, maybe the people will flip flop again. But the one thing I'll say, and I've seen it time and again, I don't know, I've not really heard many black detractors about Diana, but as of other than that Dominique Samuel girl, the conservative one, the young one that comes on to certain, I'm not sure if you know who I'm talking about.
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
To kind of summarize, she's a young girl. She probably should be in her 20s. She got involved in like youth politics like years ago. She started featuring more on channels because she has conservative talking points. You understand? So initially, I thought she was kind of like devil's advocate, kind of questioning the narrative, but no, it appears that she's malleable to, pushing the agendas of, white conservative, of a certain white conservative worldview. So she's the only one I've heard, but I'm sure there's others. The point I'm making is that whenever a black person finds themselves embattled in one way or another, or finds themselves in an adverse position, someone in the public eye, black people are some of the most vociferous about condemning them and joining in with the others. Maybe that's their way of trying to demonstrate assimilation. I don't know, but
that's a good point. All right, let's touch on that. Great points from Diego Harry, man, aka Diego Ife. Salute to Diego. We got Kings and Queens in the building with a super chat. He sends in a £5 super chat, man. I really appreciate that support, man. Let me give you the tune. Let me bring it up. I know it's corny, but hey, it's the best that I can do right now. But salute to Kings and Queens with a £5 super chat. He says, just want to support the channel, bro. I really appreciate that, bro. Check out Kings and Queens channel. He's another fellow UK content creator. He's coming up in the numbers as well. So check him out. Like, salute to Kings and Queens. And he's on the panel as well. So he's going to speak in a sec. Next on was JM, I believe. And then we'll go to Kings and Queens. So JM, how are you doing this evening?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
That's good. I'm just on my phone in bed, just chilling.
Yeah, good. So I probably went all over the place in this one, but like, what are your like? Let me see. How can Black British people overcome racism in the UK, in your opinion?
They can't.
Why is that?
It's as simple as that. Because racism is a thought in the head. It's an ideology in the head. You can't kill something that is in someone's head, right? It's going to manifest from someone who keeps spreading this message. Now, it may reduce. Racism, in my opinion, stemmed from a lot more older generation. But when those older generations are passing on racism to, let's say, other people, then you have a problem, right? You could educate people as much as you want about racism, but in the end of the day, people are gonna hate you regardless, right?
Mhm.
And this is why I don't really to be honest, I don't really focus on racism, right? I just don't. Um, have I experienced racism? Yeah, of course. I've experienced racism on a football pitch. When I was playing for this disabled football team. I
Mhm.
have dealt with racism in other forms, but in my opinion, there's no way to really stop this. Once you have an ideology in the head, it keeps popping up. Like, I'll give you another example, right? An ideology in Afghanistan, right? You have ISIS, right?
Mhm.
Um, you had the US Army coming down to Afghanistan, trying to get rid of this, let's say, radical ideology, right?
Mhm.
Someone is gonna pop up again, have racist views, spread that racist views, and then it just recreates itself, right? That's why I'll be honest with you, fuck, I just don't waste my time on this stuff because, in my opinion, I think what black people should have been doing instead of complaining about racism is building infrastructures and power structures so that they can sustain themselves. And the way I
Do you
know,
believe? Sorry to cut you. Do you believe racism is a human? Is it human nature to be racist? Because
tribalistic,
someone in the yeah, someone in the chat said people need to realize that minorities don't get treated the same as the indigenous people anywhere in the world. It's normal, and you know what? I'm inclined to think like that because hey, why would, for example, a Chinese person in Nigeria be treated better than a native person of Nigeria?
right? So, like regarding so what was the question again? It was
Is it
regarding
is it human nature to be quote unquote racist? But the
well,
original question was, how can Black British people overcome racism?
how can regarding the racism, I would say to a part tribalistic, yeah, because
Hmm.
people are attracted to people who tend to be like them, or
Hmm.
tribalism, right? But you do have your outliers. Like, I'll say I'm
Hmm.
an outlier. Um,
Yeah.
I would definitely say that. That's why I have the badger flag, right?
Right.
Just to show that, hey, look, yeah, I'm black, I'm also British, and I also do take time to understand other people's cultures and see where they're coming from. Like, for example,
Hmm.
this is why my issue is when I look at the black community and I look at what they were focusing on, I think they should have been focusing on building wealth and infrastructure. When I look at like, for example, the Asian community, right? For example, I'm part Asian, right? I've had family in South Hall, South Hall, Hayes and Harlington, right? Various things of that nature, right? And when I speak to them, they were talking about as soon as they touched England, it was immediately group economics, building corner shops, building communities, right? And I've been around there. I've lived it for years. I've been in the Hindu temples, right? I have
Hmm.
friends of various cultures, right? I've been there, right? And I see how they move. I've been in insular, let's say, cultures just because I am, let's say, of a Hindu descent, right? I can
Hmm.
go into that community and I see how they move, right? And then I have a look and I look at how the black community is moving. I've been in black businesses. I've worked in black businesses. I've been in black shops. I've even tried my best to, you know, I would say a good chunk of my time, right, to actually help and improve the black community and actually see, hey, look, what needs to be changed. And the sad thing is they don't want to have the uncomfortable conversations. Sometimes they don't want to admit that in certain cases they have a part to play in the reason why they are in the state they are in now, right? um
Hmm.
like, another example is when black people were building, like, for example, I don't know if you know a place called Greenford. I don't know if you know Bradford. I don't know if you know
Hmm.
Birmingham and so forth. Back days, they were building corner shops. Even though there was racism, they were still doing their shit. You know,
You mean the Asian people?
right? And that's just my standpoint from where I'm coming from. Like at the end of the day, yeah, it sucks, but you've just got to find a way. That's just me.
Okay, great point. We're gonna expand on that as well in the second round, because I know that is for some people that's a contentious point to compare Asians with black people, Jewish people with black people. So we'll touch on that like we've done in another stream. But salute to JM in the building. JM talks with his views. So good to have you. And last but not least, in the first part of this of the call-in panel, we got Kings and Queens in the building. Salute to you, Kings and Queens. How are you doing this evening?
I'm good, Falcon. Thanks for bringing us up, bro. Thanks a lot.
No, I appreciate the super chat, man. I hope you're doing well.
Sorry, I just got a bad neck.
A bad neck?
Yeah, it's a long story.
God damn, man. What's happening, man? Who are you fighting these days?
No, I think it started about a couple of months ago. I I do something called capoeira. So, but we've got one trainer who's very he's very good at what he does, right? And I got a dodgy, like I got anyway, right? Injured my neck, then took 3 weeks off. Thought it was okay. Went through, just back to the regular schedule, and just over the last weekend, started feeling the pain in the neck, literally the back of the neck, the small of the neck, and just got worse and worse and worse to the point where, started getting. I literally couldn't look down, couldn't look left, couldn't look right. Had to stand up straight. I got worse. Couldn't sleep. Literally, I couldn't literally lie down. I couldn't get up. Couldn't do anything.
Hey, sorry to hear that, man. I was playing around at the beginning, but I didn't know it was that serious. Sorry to hear that.
No. It's when you look at me, I'm stooped over. I got medication from the hospital and all the rest of it, painkillers, and the thing that settles your stomach afterwards. You look at me, I look like an old man, stooped. I'm stooped over, so I'm just hoping it's going to go away in about. The specialist doctor said it's going to be about minimum 3 weeks. So we just see what happens after that.
Hey, I would administer you some kratom, but hey, that's another topic. So we'll come to that another time.
Yeah, man, we have to talk about it. I've never so yeah.
But with that being said, I know I've probably gone all over the place, and I'm pretty sure there's a few things you disagree with. But with the main question, or maybe you want to speak about Diane Abbott's suspension and what you think of it, but as a primary question, how can Black British people overcome racism, in your opinion, and if they can?
That's a good question. No, that's a good question. How can Black British people overcome racism as we experience it in the UK in 2023? That's a very good question. Now, you see, we're a minority in living in the UK, right? We're just a minority living in the UK. I never realised that until I got out of London myself as a kid. Until I, first times I got out of London, which was going down to Brighton and Margate on trips with your family and your church group and all that sort of stuff. You go on a trip to Brighton, you all sit, and somebody's made a whole heap of food. You sit on the pebbly beach, right? And then you look around. The older you get, you begin to look around Brighton or Margate, and you realise, even as a kid, there's not a lot of Black people there, and we're all visitors because obviously we're all in the touristy bit. And so when you go to uni, if you go outside of London, you just realise you're just a minority. So the question is, how can a minority group overcome? In other words, replace racism with something else. Generally speaking, you want to. If racism equals injustice, then you want to replace it, I suppose, with justice. We can talk about what that looks like, but I'm going to make an assumption. You're going to want to replace what you consider to be injustice with a system of justice where anyone who needs help, right, gets the help that they need within your system, right, whatever that is. So then we start talking about the word equity. right? Those that need help, because that's basically what you talk, so everyone starts, if you're disabled, if you're this, if you're that, if you come out of a home as a kid, if you have whatever issues you've got, not necessarily self-made issues, like you went and spent all the money, you just felt like gambling the money, right? But, unless we're talking about addictive people, people who have addictions, which, a lot of people get addictions, to be quite honest with you. You'd be surprised. A lot of people get all kinds of addictions. So how can we overcome, let's just put it down. Let's talk about poor treatment meted out via the system onto black people. If we're talking about that, so then we've got to look at particular areas. How easy is it? I mean, easy is a horrible word because it doesn't describe a lot. It minimizes things. But how easy might it be to overcome or to stop, non-white people, i.e. people of African descent, more than likely men, young men? How do we stop them getting bullied, bamboozled, and all the rest of it in any kind of a court system? To what extent are young black men considered to be a villain in any situation when the police arrives before and treated unfairly, just in that situation, even before anyone's really opened up their mouth, right? So and then you could go right down the line in terms of face-to-face contact, if you like, with state arms, or not. You could talk about with black women. To what extent do they get meted out certain treatments during pregnancy? Because it is true that black women have the highest mortality rate in pregnancy. So what are we being given? What are black women being given, right, as the first medicine, if you like, during pregnancies, if the pregnancy is unstable? Right?
Do you think that high mortality rate is an example of quote unquote white supremacy, in your opinion?
Put it this way. What you do, right, in any business, what you do, right, you've got to get the facts in front of you, because you can't really make any kind of a decision. You're not going to be allowed to make any decision in any business unless you've got all of the facts in front of you, and then you make a decision based on facts, right? Do you get what I mean? So it's not like you can't make decisions that affect people based on your feelings, right, or what you think, what you put. Your anecdote, all of that is, you can't do that to people, right? So
that's true.
So so what that then means is getting if we're taking, for example, what black women face in regarding birth, after birth, what treatments are given to them, if they got fibroids, pick that. That's a good example because that's nothing to do with black men, right? So then if it's clear that black women are losing babies at higher rates than anyone else, right? Anyone else, black women are using babies, which is the truth, as I understand it, right? And if it's true, right, that then they get given a certain treatment, one treatment all the time, right?
Or mistreatment.
Or mistreatment, or let's just say that they get cancer of the cervix or something, and the idea is just to whip your womb out. So all of these black women's wombs are being whipped out. You got that, and when you look at treatments for other women, right, it might be that it happens exactly the same for them. They get their wombs ripped out as well. But sadly, we know this. Generally speaking, in this kind of area, we know that's not the fact. The fact is, these women get given different treatments. We know that. That's on record. You don't have to go and guess. That's not any part of your guesswork. But what it is you've given the job to go and do the research so that they can improve the service. Your job is basically just to bring the facts and put it before the people that are going to change the service. It might be that black women are the best treated, that they're the best treated, that everything's great for them, that they're not asked to be given, having their wombs whipped out at just a sniff and a cough. It might be that, when they've got fibroids, that they're offered loads of different treatment. Everyone's really knowledgeable about it. And, when white women, they suffer from something similar, but I can't remember what that is, right? But it might be that there's complete parity, So
this is more in line with education then, right? Informing these professionals.
No, not at all. This is in line with forming government policy. Right, I want to make it clear. So the way it's done is like this, right? What racism in the system looks like is like this, right? the research that gets paid for, the research that goes through, the research that PhDs get funding for, because they can get funding for their whole qualification, or maybe not all of it, but they'll get bursaries and this, that, and the other, right? If they agree to follow a certain path of study, because that body of work, that PhD work, will go towards some sort of government-led initiative that they're trying to, and they got to put teeth behind it, right? That's where your study comes in. But if certain modes, certain avenues of study, certain areas are simply not picked up by the government, and there's no funding behind it, then there's going to be no PhD work around it, and therefore there's going to be no knowledge created for anything to happen, because the government don't get it. The government doesn't want it. That's not on the government agenda, right? That is what systematized racism looks like. So you see, the thing is, right? This is quite deep, right? And so it's quite subtle. I mean, years ago, as you know, it was easy to have a fight with a skinhead, kick him in, beat him up, right? Take out all your anger on him and feel like you've had a great, big, lovely, McDonald's. That's all it is. But you'll be hungry again tomorrow, because there'll be another one of these people, right? And, you throw some stones at some police and you injure a few of them. You see him injured. You see, because the stone lick him in his head, and you're happy, right? But the next day you're going to work, right? And, it's not like nothing's changed. Nothing at all. Nothing. He's had to go hospital. The coppers had to go hospital, and I think you need coppers. But basically, I think no society can function without police, right? None anywhere, right? But it comes into this conversation. So yeah. So getting back to the original question, right? I mean, I would like to say that. I can't remember the way you phrased it, but I'd like to say that black people should and can change racism and to something else. But the truth is, right? Because black people are a tiny minority group in the UK, right? We don't have the numbers, right? We simply don't, right? And there is it's gotten worse now in terms of community cohesion, right? There is zero. I would argue that there's zero real community cohesion. What do I mean by that? I know that
cohesion between black people in the country.
Well, no, community. I mean, between so I know it's not. I know the Jewish communities are overused. Right, but when you do look at, in Palmer's Green, you got a fairly decent sized, not Jewish, a Greek Cypriot community, as I know it, or at least it used to be like that. Anyway, in Stockwell, you've got a great big Portuguese community, right? And then you do have the Jewish communities, in and around North London, and Asian communities. The brother on the panel mentioned. A few places the brother mentioned, and Greenford, and there's other places. There's other places not doing so well, and they're Asian. I totally understand that. In and around Romford, visibly they're not doing that well. Economically, at least when you look at the properties that they live in, right? But nonetheless, if we're talking about community cohesion, right, as a battering ram for government when they do something that you don't like, right, then the Jewish community is a great example, as is some of the Asian communities, as are some of the Greek communities, and that there's certain things that they control in the areas where they choose to live. And
okay, that's a great point. We're going to come back to that in a bit. Okay, we need to expand on that, but I just want to get a few super chats in. But I appreciate you, kings and queens, for coming in. You've set the pace on a few things already. Shout out to Jessica X with the £10 super sticker, man. I really appreciate you, sis. Good to have you in the building, man. I really appreciate the support. Salute to Jessica X in the building. You all know Jessica X, one of the biggest UK channels, in the scene. So salute to you, Jessica X. Good to have you in the building. We also got Rick's Mace in the building, man. Salute to you, bro. He comes through with a £10 super chat, man. I really appreciate that. He says, big up Falcon and Kings. Racism becomes more hidden when it's exposed. Publicly, being racist can be shut down, but you can't avoid the hidden actions of the racists, which keep down the minority. That's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. But Rick's Mace, we might have to touch on that. Salute to you. I appreciate the support. And appreciate everyone in the building. Feel free to like the stream if you're enjoying it so far. But we're gonna kind of go into a more conversational part of the show. Okay, but what I want to hit on in the next part, because Diego brought it up, and I find it to be very interesting when we were speaking about Anthony Joshua, right? When he had his meltdown last year, right? And kind of as expected, he got hit with a few stereotypical judgments from the predominant demographic, right? But then also there was a good flurry of insults by black people, right? And I've noticed that as well from some Pan-Africanists, there was anti-Nigerian sentiments towards him, right? So what I want to ask, we're talking about racism and its crippling effects in the UK for a demographic as small as ours. But I also want to ask, is black self-hate, quote unquote, like this critical judgment of each other, is that just as powerful or as effective as racism to some degree? Obviously not on a systemic degree, but you never know. Maybe it could be. Maybe that bleeds into hiring managers or HR managers who might be black, might have certain ideas and opinions, and because of that, that might be the difference between you failing an interview, for example. So I just want to ask the panel, what do we think of that? Is so-called black self-hate just as powerful or crippling as general racism?
Honestly, if I'm to say anecdotally, I'd say yeah. It may not be absolute, but anecdotally, I've seen it in action. I've seen what people have been able to, just how there's many instances that come to mind. Like, okay, case in point. Imagine, let's say you got a parent, right, that is in cahoots with a school. That the school, let's say it's a predominantly white school, the teachers obviously have those kind of racist leanings. And it's almost like an implicit understanding that, okay, this child is going to be put under special needs statements, right? You, the school, are going to get X amount of thousands every year. I'm going to get a smaller amount, but I'm going to get something. And then the kid is just the collateral. You understand? Or the money ritual, if you will. In that instance, whilst those teachers already had those racist ideas, the parent ultimately put that child like a lamb to the slaughter. You understand? So when that child may now be hearing narratives and obviously hearing about chronology of racist teachers and racist educational system going back decades, the key thing that will be omitted in many cases is the role of that parent. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's a parent who's able to really be instrumental in that child feeling the weight of so-called white supremacy. You understand? That's one example. Let's say you've got a black woman, for example, who, I don't know, she may have a partner and she wants to get him kicked out of the home. She'll play on the stereotype, call the police, play on the stereotype, she puts on the right act to be very persuasive. You understand? It might not even be a woman. It might not even be a partner. It might even be a family member who is overcome with some kind of misandry, and anything that's male can get it. I'm just giving you different instances how this can happen. Guys who just are wanting to shank or shoot or do something to another black guy. So what they're gonna do, they're gonna do that implausible. See, there's something I'll say before I say this, right? There's often a joke that has been made that white people think all black people are the same, right? But there are black people that think the same thing too. So in terms of mistaken identity, there's too many instances of, like I said, people killing, some black people killing other, black males killing other black males, basically, right? There's too many instances of it. And I'll say to you straight from what I've seen, right? It's not mistaken identity. The guy wants to catch a body. Or the guys, because they're not about that life. They want to catch a body, makes them feel better about themselves. And guess what? In many instances, the killers are often not caught. So you're weaponizing,
and that's the mad thing.
That's an informed decision. And I don't want anyone to tell me that you can attribute it ultimately to like the home. Yeah, the home is a key incubator. Don't get me wrong, but that child in that moment, right, or adult, you know. The man or men that choose to do that have made an informed decision. To go around driving, cruising, looking for a random guy, that's intentional.
And
that's
it has to be
sequences of thoughts and actions. And then even if you want to look at, for example, doing what they need to do to kind of remove themselves away from, you know, the action itself, right? Is that why it's personal? I can go on. There's so many instances. Even guys that come onto the stream, for instance, there are some people there's black guys that will come here, right, under the cover of anonymity and start trying to discredit certain people just because they're jealous of them, just because do you see what I'm trying to say? But yet they'll be in spaces doing black on a black on a black. But then these times they want black men to fail. Do you understand? And they already know that as much as I'm not, I'm definitely not a fan of fatalism. There's obviously going to be obstacles, and there, time and again. I'm giving you the summary. I can do a long.
Isn't that the key? Isn't that the key and most notable issue with so-called Black British people? Is that we're dealing with some level of, historic racism, right? But then at the same instance, we're dealing with other people from our own so-called demographic, right, whether rightly or wrongly, that also do not want us to succeed, or also becoming an obstacle in our way. So it's like it's like we have a double, a two-pronged issue before us that is probably unique. You know what I mean? It seems unique to us.
Yeah, exactly. And just one thing on the topic of that, right? Some people might think that, because you say, so you got the banner of blackness. Someone might say, okay, you're from that country. Say, for example, you're Nigerian. I'm anti-Nigerian, so I'm going to do this under the cloak of Nigerian. But then the reality is, you've got people that are even of the same hometown that will find themselves here or in the other part of the diaspora, and then do the other person over just cause. So you can't even put it down to like the ethnicities within blackness. It's it just seems like it's a trait. You can't really determine. Am I making sense? There's, put it like this, I'd say that black life is so casually devalued that it's literally like breathing among many black people. Let me say it as it is, and I'll leave it there.
Oof. Anyone else wants to jump in on that? Is black self-hate as strong as racism?
I could jump in on that.
Sure.
Regarding the self-hatred thing, right? I think it probably stems from how other black people are treating other black people. I've been through a lot in regards of, let's just say, other black people have put me through a lot of problems, right? For reasons that just because I have a difference of opinion, or simply because of, I've even had I've had like family members who, let's just say, have been attacked or stabbed, right? And the thing is, it's like, this is why I said I made a statement, I think this was way back, right, in one of your streams, about what was one of the best things my mother did for me, right? And that was to move me away from a predominantly black area. Now, people will say, oh, that statement may be self-hatred or whatever, right? In my opinion, no. The reality is, in certain cases, I'm not saying all black people, right? I have black friends. I am here, and I have tried my best to, improve the community, done lectures regarding the black community to educational psychologists, right? But the thing is like, when it comes to me is when I put a lot of energy into something, right? And I generally want change and I create solutions, right? If I don't see, let's say, a return, right? Or let's just say I don't see a change in terms of when I'm trying to help people, what is the point? Right? Now, I'm not trying to be a victim. I'm not trying to be one of these people. I'm just someone who just sees things for what they are and what the reality is. Right? Yes, you're gonna have a few black people here and there who are gonna be good and who are generally gonna want to help you. Right? I've been there, done that, but this could be for any person of any culture or race, point blank, period. And the thing is for me, it's just beyond black and white and race for me. Really, it's just like, is this person a good person or a bad person? Right? That's just me, though.
In your experience, with when you say that, in your experience, and if you just keep it real,
go on.
Are most black people that you've met in your lifetime, have they been good people or bad people?
For me, to be honest, I'll say bad. But there's been good black people.
Yeah.
Okay. Conversely, when you say that to white people, one second, Sharian. When you say that about white people you've met, and it's probably not a fair comparison because obviously there's a larger demographic.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not even gonna answer that, but I just need to, because that calls some curiosity, man. Because like,
go on.
No, that's all I wanted to ask, the black part, because the other part might be a bit badgery.
Right, they're battery in full effect, right? But but the thing is like, the reality is if you have a certain group of people doing certain actions that is dysfunctional and that are affecting you, right, in a negative way, right, it is going to shape your perspective in terms of how you see those type of people. Sorry, it just is what it is, right? So this is why I said I am willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. I have people who are of different cultures, and we have even more uncomfortable conversations about this, right? Because they are comfortable to talk about these things around me, right? I don't get triggered. I don't get emotional. I'm not quick to react, right? And this is how you actually improve race relations, is actually have these uncomfortable conversations, understand where each other is coming from, and then have civil discourse, right? That's the only way you improve things, right? It just is what it is. But even though I've had black people who've done really bad things and towards me, do I harbor a hatred towards them? No. I just look at people as individuals, point blank, period. But sometimes you're going to have your guard up if you keep noticing a certain pattern of certain people who are doing certain actions. Right? It's just human nature. Right? It's not even about race. Right? And you're going to be attracted to those and you're going to be attracted to good people and you're going to be attracted to bad people. It's as simple as that.
Great points, JM, man. Let me quickly call out Michael Meachuk the fourth, the 99-cent super sticker, man. I really appreciate that, bro. Michael Meachuk in the building, man. Always good to have you in the building, man. Coming through with a consistent 99 cent, man. Good to have you. Michael Meachuk in the house. Sharian, you want to jump in?
Yeah, what I wanted to say regarding his point, yeah, it's true that it affects everyone, in different ways, including white people. I think that,
what affects everyone, in your opinion?
I think that a lot of white people are the ones that actually truly face, racism, but like it's not called out through mainstream media, because anytime
repeat what you just said. You feel like white people are the ones who truly feel racism.
Like, I'm not saying they feel racism in the sense that they don't have less money than blacks, but they're the ones that they're the ones that are usually targeted for being quote unquote called racist by other non-whites, and then automatically that gives that white guilt expression and things. But the thing is that I've spoken to Don Black, a founder of Stormfront, or something, and you heard of Craig Cobb. He's a notorious white nationalist who founded
I'm just curious because you keep mentioning this. Why do you speak with such people? What do you aim to get out of the conversation with these people?
It's like I want to get their point of view in the stance of how what white nationalism symbolizes to them, and compare it to how pro-blacks are, and see who truly is. Because a lot of pro-blacks, they're even bigger white supremacists than the quote-unquote white nationalists and things. At least they're upfront about it, and they'll say that black people need to get their money and things. They need to start trying to invest in things, and they need to get everything right in order to live a great life without trying to steal or rob from one another.
Okay.
Yeah, if you get what I mean, not a lot of people understand.
Yeah. I get what you mean. I understand what you're saying. Anyone else want to jump in on the whole, if this whole black self-hate is what is on par with racism?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Falcon.
Sure.
Black self-hate on the par with racism, or I suppose for me, if I were to ask the question, is black self-hate as destructive as racism, right? Then I'd say, yeah, definitely, right? Because I mean, whenever you look at, for me, black self-hate, one way it articulates itself is clearly through tribalism, tribalism. So it may be, from as the states have been carved up now, right? It may be from, the Tutsis and the Hutus, even though obviously it was stirred up by foreigners, but that's tribalism. It might be through different tribes in Nigeria that decide that we're going to do you over for whatever reason. And even though we know our man is rubbish, that's up for election locally, we're going to vote for our man. We know he's unqualified, unskilled, and a total tosser, but we're going to vote for him, right, over your man that we know is decent, a decent guy, right, but he's of your tribe. That's why we're not going to vote for him, right? They're the kind of conversations I was having when I was in Ghana, right? You know what I mean? And I've been told by Ghanaian friends that that's the deal, that is the issue with their politics, right? That's pure tribalism. That all it does is mash up the country. Right, because you've got so if you're the biggest tribe, then you can have more people in power, possibly, right? Tribalism as we experience it here in the UK, your postcode against my postcode, right? And we're gonna have a go at you lot if you come into our estate, right? Because we never used to do it by postcode years ago. It's just our estate. And we're going to go and fight your state.
What is this? Is this a curse? Because, you go over to America, is what? Bloods and Crips, is East Coast versus West Coast. You come here, postcodes, what, Southeast London. Like, what? Why?
Good question. Good question. The answer is no. Right? Why do I say it's not a curse? Because if you read the history of Europe, right, that tiny little place called Europe, if you read it, if any black person studies Europe, right, under the lens of tribalism, you're going to see that they had all of the same issues, right? You know how many European wars there's been? There's been loads of them, right? It's just that, you see, with us, we have settled, right, for Europeans labeling us as tribes when really we've been nations. There's more Yorubas than there is, I know I'm not pronouncing it right, apologies, right? But there's more of that group of people than there is in most European countries, right? But yet we settle for a name called tribe. They call whatever they do nation, right? And so no, when you look at their history, right, then you see that this is just a group of little tribes mucking around fighting in the cold weather. That's all it's been, and it's been like that. It's been like that for a very, very long time until the Romans came, right? And you got to understand what happened there, right? So you had a whole heap of little tribes killing each other in Europe, right? and then this foreign power came, right, that were boosted up by basically Greece, who were in turn boosted up by North Africans. Hello, right? You understand do you see that? So you had a nation state in Africa, right, where the ancient Greeks came and found out 2 + 2 is 4, right, and they did a little rap and went away. Pythagoras and all that, or whatever their names were at that time. They went and gave things to their cousins, right? The Italians. The Italians come back and rule North Africa, and then they start to rule not only North Africa, but they march into Europe and they ruled this country, right? They built some baths up in. They donated. They had a whole town just for bathing. That was Bath, literally, right? And then their thing falls apart. Back to tribalism again. Right back to tribalism, right? King Arthur and all that. All of that was just tribal, They don't say it like that, but that's all it was. They were just all tribal. So no.
But is it then that black people are like centuries behind them? If we are kind of under that duress right now?
No, and that's a very good question too. No, it's not. You see, what it is, you got to see. Everything that's been everything that is now has already happened. It's already taken place, right? So I understand the point, but when you look at the length of African history, the just the sheer length, right? You then realize that you've had urbanization in North Africa, in the desert, before it was a desert. Literally, right? So all of that, so it's situational, the encroaching desert, right? The lack of rain, people had to move. People migrated from the desert, what we see as now desert. We never used to be a desert. It was literally green. But so the only reason I'm bringing that up is to say that the arc of history, right, is long. It literally goes over tens of thousands of years, right?
Right, and it might not be just linear, right? It might not just go one way, as in the progression from tribe to nation. It could be disintegration, right? Like big empires split up, and then tribal. Like, yeah, I get that.
Absolutely, it's back and forth, right? So it goes from tribe. It's better to live around a river or a fast-flowing, clear, freshwater stream. That's the best place to live, right? So you develop cities when your desert dries, and then the city ebbs away through war, through people moving on, through people not liking the government, just people migrating east into Central Africa and down to south, right? And then whatever you set up there, and you have some mighty kingdoms there, they go from little tribes scattered around. The tribes join up, or they are conquered, right, by larger tribes, and then somebody has the bright spark to develop a nation state with all the trappings of a nation state, right? And then that has its rise, right? They might invade a few countries like Portugal and Spain, right? And then you got and so it goes on, and then that ends.
What comes to my mind is that it sounds like it's almost like an environmental issue, man. When you consider the land of Africa, how do you say
deforestation,
right? So that's gonna encourage migration, right? Absolutely. People are gonna uproot and be unsettled and try to create something in wherever they settle to, right? So they're going to be less developed, right? Less cultivated, right? Learning I can kind of see that as the root of the issue.
Absolutely, the landscape acts on destroys a nation as much as its people, believe it or not. But in our case, getting back to the question, it's. Yeah, this whole thing about we're not more backward than anybody else. What I would say though is slightly different in the time we're living in, because there was no internet, there was no covert warfare, or to the degree that we have it today. We didn't have bombs, we didn't have the kind of weapons that you can sit in America and literally drive a guided missile and just let it float around. When you get your target, you just put a beamer light on it, boom, done. Right. So you got what you got here now. You've got something called regime change. right? So whereas whatever countries years ago, right, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 15, 10,000 years ago, were able to go through their own cycle of boom and bust, right? And it's a long arc. It's a long arc, right? It's not in your lifetime. It's in maybe 50 lifetimes, right? They go from tribalism, from nothing to tribalism, from nothing to villages, to whole tribes, and then nation state. The last stage is, or the high stage, if you like, is nation state, right? Where things are happening. You've got a system of taxes, a system of policing, all of that. That's a nation, and all of those things, right? And then you go towards a nation, you try and take over foreign countries. If that's your thing, you try and do that. They all seem to do it, some more than others, right? And then basically things destabilize the empire, destabilize the nation. Before you know it, you're fighting internal issues. One of those issues are the women don't want to basically get married to the men anymore, and then you got to fight that battle, right? No, it's what. I'm not trying to change the subject, but listen, when it comes to community cohesion, right?
Yeah, I get it.
Right. Listen, we got to understand the power of a family, right? There's no. When you study nations, right, there isn't one nation that stood right. If the men and the women decide not to work together, literally, go and study it. There's not one, right? They only, and the other one is that you can get that interventions from the government is going to work. Now, they're all just nonsense. So when you get to Pol Pot, he tried to turn the clock back to zero. It didn't work. When you get Mao Zedong and his Cultural Revolution, right? In the end, look where they are now. From hardline social whatever it was. And when you look at but the last one is our Western countries. What they never saw, what they thought is that the market is going to decide things, the power of the market, and the best person is fit for the job, can do the job. But what they never fought for is what capitalism will do to the minds of people. They can't get money. Listen, capitalism is driven. I'll shut up in a minute. Capitalism is driven on money. That's what it's driven on, right? And a few other little things, right? So, there's no point appealing to a bunch of men that are going to basically look underneath the bonnet and look at a car engine and study it. There's no, what you want are frivolous spenders. It's as simple as that. That's what you need, right? And then you've got to look at the group of people that are the more frivolous in their spending and target them, right? And if you're good at doing that, your company will be all right. It's simple as that. And I think the conversation is obvious after, and that's so if there's going to be any way that's going to bring down the West, right, it's going to be around communities falling to pieces. Our community, right, or if you like, the black community in the West or in Western countries or in the UK, right, we've suffered some quite interesting little things. Not only third wave, fourth wave feminism, right, but also what a guy called Frank Kitson. He wrote a book called Low Intensity Warfare, right?
Okay, Kings. That's a great point that I want to segue off of, but man. Great information from what you said. I appreciate that. Great information. Okay, with that being said, I want to speak about, or I want to ask the question about, people find it quite contentious where we try to compare the Asian communities with the black communities, and in relation to what Diane Abbott said, the Jewish communities, right? So I want to ask the question: why is it that why is it hard to compare black communities with Asian communities and Jewish communities? What are the main differences? And I kind of want to segue into that because Kings and Queens mentioned feminism. And, I would imagine that feminism is being omitted over all other communities, right? The Jewish, the Asian communities. So, why does it seem like the black communities are more so, negatively affected with that issue?
Popular culture, in a nutshell. It's the way that popular culture has evolved over the decades. Think about, obviously some of us might have just missed it, but the Cosby Show, Desmond's, those, that was your nascent popular culture, right? more family orientated, wholesome, so on and so forth, right? But notice how once you got deeper into the 90s and beyond, you had the onset of, TLC. So creep, and then Beyonce and Destiny's Child and Bills, and all this other stuff, and no scrubs and yada yada yada. And then the denigration of the black male image. Apparently, black men are either all gay, go to prison, or I forget what the other one is. You know, get you a guy. What else? Just different things, just poor portrayals. And in the talk shows, we talk about the diffusion of feminist ideas within the black communities. If you look at the likes of Oprah Winfrey, you look at the likes of is it Ricky Lake? There's I used to see black guys, either the men themselves or their image, be punked for fun. As a kid, it was confusing. And then it's obviously, as I've got older and been in these spaces, I was able to link them together. You look at, for example, a lot of these women that talk about build, 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 they take their cues from watching all these reality, all these desperate housewives, all these housewives of this and housewives of that, all those shows, you know what I'm talking about. And getting glimpses of like the latest trends and stuff. So I would say that black people's identity is obviously generally sensitive. I think everybody has some level of crises to another. No one is entirely settled in their identity, but I do think that popular culture has been very foundational. It's the nexus of black identity for many people in the West. And so because of that, people will model their behavior on corrosive things, not just consciously, but subconsciously. And also, in certain cases where, you don't have, it depends on your background, but, with Britain, or speaking about Britain, a lot of us are second generation. And, instances where there's different reasons as to why our families have ended up here. And then you got people's dads that don't want to fully move here, split that. There's all kinds of variables, if you get the point. But the long and the short is that it's not a settled presence. We know it's a motley crew. And the one thing, because of the lifeblood of popular culture, people have absorbed it, and that subsumes feminism and feminist ideas. And unfortunately, a lot of the men or males or what have you, there's reasons which are obviously are beyond their control, and there's things that they're contributing to. They aren't allowed full male expression. So there's certain ideas that prevail because the men just accept it. Like, I'll just use this one example, pass it on, but I'm sure you've seen in the comment sections, whether that's on live streams or after, at the watch, the replay, where people have accused other people of hating black women because you've critiqued behavior, or of all of the different content that we've discussed on multiple panels, they will basically take out, you hate black women. These are supposed to be guys that are independent minded, supposedly rational, capable of listening to views that perhaps diverge from what they have believed for one reason or another. You see what I'm saying? So as much as the popular culture, like I said, has probably been the most corrosive, I think that there's many men that have to look at themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, what the hell are they doing? Because they seem to be very comfortable hating other black men, but then it's touch not die anointed with the females. You understand? So they are an integral part of the corrosive effects of third and fourth wave feminism. I'll pass it on.
Great points. Sharian, did you want to jump in? Because I think you unmuted before I muted you. Just got a bit of background noise.
Yeah, no, there's nothing I can do about the background noise, but yeah.
Now it's better. Now it's clearer.
Yeah. Diego is absolutely right, about that there needs to be more, strong family relationships amongst each other, and more, people need to start, understanding the dynamic of what it takes to actually, overcome racism. Racism isn't just about skin color or, things. It's more to it. That's why, from grade one, even my teacher once said, that there's always going to be someone disliking you for not the color of your skin, not the content of the character, but there's always going to be a divide amongst each other, regardless of what their ethnicity is and what nationality is. And it doesn't necessarily have to do with hating one another. And Diane, Abot suspension, truly was, something that should have not happened, because of what's going on, and
why not? Why shouldn't she be suspended for what she said?
Because apparently she is like someone that is quote unquote a liberal, but she shouldn't be someone that is suspended, because a lot of white folks, they still see her as less than, but
so are you saying she should get a special privilege because she's black? Is that what you're saying, kind of?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. I want to pass it to I want to ask JM a question, like in terms of the comparing Asians with blacks, because we mentioned quite a bit on many other streams that when we go to the corner shops, usually Asian owned. When we go to even some African shops, Asian owned. So like, do you think it's fair to compare Asian and blacks? Like, aren't there any points that we as different groups of people can learn from the Asians, or is it unfair to compare, in your opinion?
I will say this: there's things that you can learn from them. I would say one of the biggest issues that I've seen over the years regarding black businesses is selling them too quickly, right? And this is something that I've been banging on about for ages, right? To a point where I just can't be asked, right? Is black ownership, right? If you want to build power structures in the black community, you have to own it, right? And it has to be something that is very valuable to society, right? Now, I don't know what that could be, right? But this is what I've been saying: is you have to own stuff. You have to have ownership, right? And then through ownership is how you build generational wealth, right? Because if you sell it to someone else, they pretty much can do whatever they want with it, and you have no control. The key is controlling of the businesses. And if you're controlling a business, then you could build from generation to generation and have wealth for over X amount of generations, right? And I've been down to Peckham, I've been to down various places, and I've been down there, right? And basically, I remember back in the maybe a few years back in Peckham, it was a lot of black owned places, right?
Yeah.
Then I started to see a change where it was Asians and various other communities. Now, what does that tell me is that you've basically probably, I'm just making an assumption, I could be wrong, you have basically sold your business to someone else, right? And not actually have the long-term, or let's say the delayed gratification, right? In actually keeping that business and growing, right?
Okay, let me ask you this question, because you make that pivotal point. Why do you think the typical black business owner of that caliber doesn't have the same level of interest to keep and hold on to that business, see it prosper, and then pass it down to, I don't know, their children or something like that? Why doesn't that intent exist, in your opinion?
Maybe it's the quick money, maybe it's the delayed gratification. Because when I really look at, and also I will say that some of the businesses are ran poorly, not all, but a prime example is a barbershop. Not all barbershops, but I actually had to leave black barbers, right? I generally tried to I had to try my best. I did try my best to support, But I'm sorry, I'm not waiting an hour and a half, right, for one barbershop cut, right?
To be honest, man, the black barber is an atrocity. Like when you look at it, it's been like the same for like 20, 30 years. Just gather here, just sit, get your weight, like no order in most cases, right?
Yep. And I've worked in businesses, right? Even a family business, and the way it's ran, I've been part of committees, and the way it ran, there was one point where I had to actually cuss someone out to leave because they wouldn't do any work for a whole year, right? And I wasn't the person that was running the business, right? Because sometimes we have this very family like, how can I say it? Very family like, very forgiving, let's say, way of doing things where it's like more to do with being entertained in the business than actually getting down to the hard work and the nitty gritty. That could be another issue too. Another thing as well is regarding the black barber again. What I always tend to see is there's TVs there, there's people just talking, there's no organization in terms of getting from the next person to get the cut. It's more of a experience than an actual business, if you get what I'm saying. Now, I'll go to say, yep, I've experienced that too, right? Someone jumps the queue. I've experienced that too. Oh, I've made a special reservation, but it's bullshit, right? I was there. So basically what happened is I had to leave and I went to a Turkish barber. And guess what happened? I literally went in the shop, got my cut in 20 minutes, got right back out. So that's an hour and 10. That's about what, an hour and 10 minutes difference of time that I've saved. Now that very hour 10, that 20 minutes, right? If you do the maths, about 20 minutes of that hour and 10, you go to the Turkish barber, that's about what, 7 or 8 cuts. So that's more money made, right? And the reality is when it comes to, as they say, time is money. If you want to truly build wealth, the real key of building wealth is learning how to leverage time and how to leverage time of other people, right? That's basically how you build wealth, right? Now, that's the issue, right? Is the time management as well. If you don't know how to manage time, you ain't making money. Point blank, period. Right? Well, you will make money, but not as much as you want.
Okay, let me ask this then, because in the vein of comparing different cultures, is this then, because a lot of people, I think it's a simpleton kind of mentality to just say, oh, low IQ, these people just don't have it. They don't, they innately just don't have it. But do you not think like it's more of a cultural acceptance? Like we accept shoddy kind of work and shoddy goods and shoddy services, almost like the barber's a good example. Like, it's like in some cases, like we just don't really have a choice because some people say like, yeah, okay, the Turkish, they just can't line up, they can't fade like the way like black barbers can. So it's like they don't complain, they just stick with it for decades, right? But so is that then creating a culture where we allow bad business practices, unprogressive workmanship and stuff like that? Like, is it a cultural thing or is it something more?
I'll say it's cultural. I'll definitely say it's good. The idea that black people are low IQ people, that's I think that's a stupid statement. In itself. Would I say that there's some black people that are doing dumb stuff? Yeah, I see a lot of dumb stuff going on. Right, but it doesn't necessarily mean that black people in general are low IQ people. I don't buy that. Right, I think that's nonsense. It's depend on the type of intelligence in terms of what is displayed in certain environments, right? Like put the average black person on a soccer pitch or any sports endeavor, might be a different outcome, right? And I mean in a positive outcome, right? So we have different things to offer, and sometimes we may have to accept that is not just our field. Maybe it's something else, right? But we still need to learn how to leverage those talents into building wealth and building power structure and ownership, right? So really, I would say it's a cultural issue more than anything, because regarding Asians, they will I know is like they will just get like a bedroom flat and then somehow make it happen, and then they will just grind, do group economics, and then next thing you know, they've got houses and now they've got communities and so on and so forth. Like they tell me the stuff, right? For example, certain ways in terms of how they structure how families are set up. For example, if let's say a black person, this is a generalization, but say for example, a black person will get kicked out of the house by 18 if they ain't got their shit together, right? But if you look at, like, for example, Asian or even Somali or Muslim, right? Yep, stay in the house, make sure you're doing the right things, build your money, and then you have time to build a house, have money for a house and a place to move out. And I remember a school friend, college friend, Muslim guy. I remember when he first came to my college, he could hardly speak English, right? And I actually had to help him speak. I actually had to help him regarding his English, right? Now, fast forward, I go to a gym. I see him roll up in an Audi, right? And basically, we both went into the gym, and this is years ago, and we came back out, and then he was telling me he's now a doctor, and then he offered me a ride home. Now, this is an immigrant, right? I was born in the UK. He wasn't, but he became a doctor and he's doing well for himself. It's the mentality and the culture. That's what I would say is the issue in the family structure as well, in terms of, I'm just gonna be honest, some black families just set up black men for failure. And that's something that we don't want to talk about. King Richard talks about this a lot, and he's spot on in terms of his observation of that, because I've experienced it. And I've seen it in many households around in my life. Some of us are set up for failure. Some of the decision making for our future children is so effed up that now we have to pick up the slack for it. We're the ones that have to work 3 times harder. Maybe the system, or maybe we didn't have fathers in the home, and then we basically just got to work harder, right? And even when King Richard said himself, like, he had to freestyle for his life. Same thing with me, right? Because there's a lack of masculinity in the household in certain cases. Right. But yeah,
great points, Jam, because you remind me, and I want to bring Diego in on this part if you don't mind. A lot of discussions in these streams talk about idealizing, going back to an African country to settle down, going back to a Caribbean country to settle down. So, I think, one of my pushbacks to that mentality, right, which is a kind of typical quote unquote passport bro mentality, is that I think if people do that, right, if people have this lack of motivation to stay and build some sort of foundation here, especially after JM, what he said, like being aware of certain disabilities that we might have had in terms of our family structure, but now we have the awareness and the wisdom to know what is needed to build some sort of function, but we want to remove ourselves from the environment. Surely that's gonna reset things. That's gonna bring things back to ground zero, right? And the reason why I want to bring Diego in, because it's like, I think in the past we've done our stream and we was talking about, or you had an idea about being, I think you called it a transient or transnational.
Transnational.
So kind of ebbing back and forth to our parents or countries of origin and back. But speaking in the case of how it seems like certain other communities here have their power, do you think that those type of movements kind of weaken black people's position in the UK? And I'm not trying to single you out. It's just like to progress what James said. Do you think that we should knuckle down, with that business example, not want to sell out and run away to some Caribbean island and chill, have a long-term plan of being black and British?
This is the issue. I think it's the best, and this is the thing, even with the transnational example option, most people probably either can't do it because they their money isn't right for whatever reason, or they may have the money and they just don't want to do that. But the thing is, like whether we like it or not, the Black British, as we now know, identity is more like a default kind of reactionary. It's still imprecise. So even people that might mean well, that might be even open to working together, the mere fact that they can't quite, put their finger on what the significance of it is. Okay, fine. The government has defined us as being Black British. Okay, cool. Now what? Now, because intelligent people still, they can't do it because it's just a very complex topic. It's very difficult to harmonize like action, It's the same thing. I said it before that I don't believe, even like I said, benevolent Black people all believe that they have a shared destiny. I don't believe that they do. And so that in itself is gonna it's going to impede the possibilities of ever working together. Also, that crabs in a barrel mentality, if I'm not the captain of this ship, I'm gonna sink it. You've got people who want to, for them, community is just a euphemism for what can I get out of it? No. What can I get out of it? And because there's no real integrity behind the idea of it, no one really challenges this stuff. It took me years of having to rack my brains and having to really kind of experiment with certain ideas, go against the grain in order to make try to make head and tail of it. But the reality is, I don't think that where we're at right now, I don't think that any one Black person owes it to the rest to stay in this country because of if they're doing it out of like, okay, fine, I'm impacting the lives of other people positively and, I'm getting something out of it, fine. But I don't think anybody should feel, because, okay, like, it's not a straightforward concept. For example,
I get you. I understand.
Yeah. Many of us probably could get a bit more involved in business, right? Obviously, business is broad. What markets? How long is it going to take? But I think the closest thing to having an enduring presence, one with purpose, is going to be building global networks. You understand what I mean? I mean, that's just the reality of it. Like England, for example, if there's more Black people that are going to be wealthy, and even though there's been an increase in, more Black people with wealth, it's still relative. And the market here in the UK is not big enough to only make money from here. I've said it before on previous streams, it's essential. Or whether Black people want to stay here or do transnationalism or completely, bounce, money needs to be made in more than one jurisdiction. It's absolutely imperative. That has to be the goal, at least, anyway. And I think that there's more passion behind wanting to derail other people's progress. Who put it like this: there's a lot of Black people would have no business network if it meant that they don't have to see other Black people who are more deserving of success succeeding. You understand? Like, I don't like. I mean, there's times where I'm not a fatalist, but when you can have all these solutions, but the solutions are very relative because it's only as viable as people buying into them, and it would be very wrong to make the assumption that everybody wants the same thing. And when I say the same thing, not obviously identically, but at a base level, what are the practical things that we need in place that will all be there ain't no common interest, because somebody will work against their own interest just to prove a point. And there's so many examples of it. So many. So
do you think that mentality is a signature behavior within Black people or so-called Black British people?
I think it's universal among Black people, and definitely in this country, because I think with many of us, and I guess it is tied to identity, we don't really most of us understand that life is cyclical by its very nature. You sleep, you eat, you shit, rinse and repeat. You understand? You go to work, you
smash.
Yeah, exactly. Replenish, and then get restore your testosterone and go again at whatever point. But it's cyclical. But when it comes down to economics, or when it comes down to business, when it comes down to building networks so that even your offspring can have some kind of resources of whatever form, that's just not something. We talk about. See, I will tell you straight that the banking industry hasn't really favored like many black people who actually are viable business owners. I've seen it. Of years of it. Having said that, right, I'll also say that I don't think a lot of black people like succession planning. And when you're gonna succeed, when you're gonna get capital, even if, for example, I was ever able to make a very compelling application to secure funding, they need to get an idea of succession planning. You know what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So handing down the reins to the
That's
next
one aspect
generation.
of it. Yeah, that's one aspect of it. Another aspect is where you might be doing very well on the market, right? But then you've got all the data, all the facts, all the the inside knowledge, and you realize that you're in a mature market, and the only next step is decline. What do you do? Should you do like a horizontal merger with another company? Because even though you might ideally want to be competitors, strategic cooperation and collaboration might actually favor you more. Off the back of merging, you might be able to access, or shall I say, acquire other units. Do you understand? Diversify, reinvent, because there's more resources. Obviously, one of the key things on business balance sheets is your assets. What assets do you have that you can liquidate in one way or another? If you've got two companies, obviously there's more to work with. You understand what I'm trying? I'm just using these as examples.
Right.
That this is like far more advanced, but at a base level, put it like this: it's like for a lot of us, if we're going to speak in broad terms, we're still crawling. But some of us either expect or talk like we should be flying Concords. And the point is how, the question really, the pressing question is how to go from point A to point B. And I don't doubt that people have the capabilities. We're not inferior to other groups. There's no, I think these decisions are more so, what's the word I'm looking for? I think they're more cultural than anything else. Yeah. That's the reality of it. And I would say the only group, I mean, obviously I don't want to wade into US waters, but I think Black Americans probably are the most for when it comes to business, right? I'm not talking about your one-off billionaire here and there, but just as a general mindset, they probably have I've seen the most cooperation and the most, should I say, astuteness with them. Do you understand? They tend to, out of every other Black group, they tend to really get it. And I'd say maybe you've got pockets of some Africans and then also some of Caribbean businessmen, if you go back to the older generations who, had a lot of foresight. But the point I'm making is it's just too few of us. And I feel that business tends to be a buzzword for how can I spend my money? How can I spend my money quickly so I can basically stun? Put it like this. I'm going to use an analogy and hopefully no one will use it without crediting it to me. But when it comes to Black people, right, you can put it like this. The analogy I use is that you have the Black people and money or capital, I'll say. You either have the farmer or you have the magician, right? There's a few who understand that they have to cultivate the capital. They have to grow it. To use JM's words, to delayed gratification, right? Then you have those who are the Harry Houdinis, the ones that are the magicians, disappearing act they've mastered. And when it comes to money, right, a lot of Black people unfortunately have long mastered the disappearing act. In fact, it's interwoven within the culture. So unless there's a fundamental reset, or even on a critical level, man, I don't know. It's hard to see any real measurable change. Anyway, I feel like I've spoken for a fair bit, but yeah, man.
Nah, great points, man. Great points. Does anyone else want to jump in with regards to comparisons with other communities and maybe point out any differences? If not, we can move on. Anyone else? Okay. Where can we go? Where can we go? I mean, we know about Abbott. I just want to ask the panel, man, on a personal level, just to make it clear where you stand. If it's too personal, you don't have to. But does anyone feel like racism in the UK is truly inhibiting their progression, maybe in their career, or basically in anything that they aspire to do or be in the country? Does anyone really feel like racism is the force that's stopping them from being their true self, so to speak?
I can interject.
Sure. Shah, we'll come to you after. I saw you on mute, so we come after JM, yeah?
For me, no. This is the thing, like, obviously I'm born of a different generation, right? So I was born in 1991, right? I'm 31 years old now. But the thing is, like, obviously I could emphasize for previous generations who had to deal with racism, for example, things like Mark Lawrence, things like the Teddy Boys, National Front, various things of that nature. I don't have to deal with that, right? Now, what I will say now is, do I think racism is stopping me from achieving things or holding me back? I would say no. The funny thing is well, it's not really funny. What I feel is more oppressive than me being so-called black is actually me having Asperger's syndrome. And let me explain why. My brain perceives the world in a different way than a normal person does, right? Or let's say a neurotypical brain, right? So we are technically I'm an alien from a different planet, right? In regards of how my brain functions and how to say so basically how to fit into society, right? Basically my own brain in certain cases, and this is also how some autistic people are, right? And this is what I actually would call real oppression, where it's where their own mind is working against them, right? Basically oppressing them because of a different brain pattern, a different way of neurological functioning and cognitive ability, right? That's why I'll say that is oppression, right? There's even statistical facts that autistic people or people with Asperger's syndrome who are actually minorities, they only make 700,000 in the whole of the UK, right? I will say that's more oppression because there's 22% of people actually employed who are, let's say, on the spectrum, right? And now there's findings that now autistic people probably have to build their own businesses, and that is filtering through from the United States of America. Now they're finding out that even doesn't matter how much education an autistic person has, they can't hold down a job for long term. So that affects them economically, right? So I don't say this to, let's say, bring myself down, right? Or think lowly of myself. I just see things for what they are and what the reality actually is and realistic, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say race is going to hold you back in this country. But I will say it will give you a different experience and different perspective in terms of how you, let's say, the experiences that you have inhibit basically living in this country, right? Everyone could have a different race, different culture where they come from, but they all experience this country in a different way from the background they're from, right? So that's really my stance in regards of that. Racism definitely exists, but I don't think it's something that could hold you back from truly getting what you truly desire. That's wild.
Hey, great point. Shah, you wanted to jump in? Well, keep in mind, we're talking about the UK specific, so I don't know how it will apply to you, but I guess the question to you is, do you feel like racism will hold you back in Canada?
It will.
Why would it?
Because
Bruh. Are you eating?
No. I was just chewing something, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
One of the reasons why it can hold anyone accountable is because you know, a lot of the
No, not accountable. If racism in Canada will hold you back, do you feel like that is so?
um will hold me back in
Like your
Canada.
progression, career wise,
Yeah,
you're a you feel it does.
it will affect, in ways that, someone can't, get a job, someone can't do things, but it's not always the case. Anyone can achieve something if they have great skills in developing themselves and, doing a lot. That's what the whole
Mm,
self improvement thing is all about. And I tell you, it's not the white man that's stopping people from doing things. It's not the Arab man. It's not the Hispanic man. It's black people themselves. It's like if we had communities in our own, neighborhoods, stores, and things, it wouldn't be the way it is.
mm.
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Good point. Anyone else want to jump on before we go to closing thoughts? If you feel like racism is holding you back in the UK, and if so, how so?
Yeah, Falcon, I'd like to come in on that one.
Sure.
Yeah, over the course of my lifetime, all right, definitely there's been elements of racism that has held me back, right? And we've discussed it, particularly, well, anyway, we've discussed it in various other places. So one of the big ways it's held me back personally and other people as well is in interviews, right? So, this is, I would say, and you're not going to know about this. You go for a job, you're not even going to know. The line you're going to get is, "You were just pipped at the post. You were just as good, but you were just like, oh, well, what can I say? Thanks for coming, right? But what went on behind the scenes is this, right? So now, I don't know if it's government law, but most workplaces try to take the names off the application forms, right? But that doesn't matter. I've found out that doesn't matter. I've been involved in interview panels as well, right? And we've had loads of conversations about it, right? So take the names off, right? But you see, the next thing anyone who's doing the doing the shortlisting would look for is where you studied, right? So let's just say your qualification is outside of England, right? Okay, what country outside of England? Was it America? Which is, okay, we'll do some more digging. The team will still try and find out who you are before you come to an interview, right? So let's just say it was somewhere like, I don't know, somewhere in Africa. Chances are you're an African, right? Okay, so this is a black person, right? All right, so they'll note that down. If not formally, they'll note it, informally, right, in their brains, right? And then the next step would be to look at, what your qualifications are, and then from there, it'd be a micro looking at your application form, right? And that's not what shortlisting is meant to be about. But anyway, they'll look at every area of your application form, what you did, any gaps, any and every last little thing, right? Everything will be literally scrutinized, right? And you might say that's all right, but they know, because they know where you studied, right? Chances are you're black, right? And there might be some few exceptions, like in the UK. If you went to study in the UK, then everybody studies there in every part of every university anyway. They'll look for other things on the application form to know who that person's going to be sitting opposite them in that interview room, right? And you can't underestimate the impact of shortlisting, right? I was thinking about it after yesterday's stream because I think I brought it up, right, as a point. But the bottom line is, it's an attempt for equity, but the truth is, there's other ways of doing it.
Okay, I want to ask you this, kings and queens, because I know, not to sound funny, but you're of an older demographic. My normal, not normal. Sorry, I hate to say that, but the typical viewers are like mid-20s to mid-30s, and then secondarily mid-30s to mid-40s, right? So I want to ask you, I mean, do you not feel or think or see somehow that situation has improved in like for today's like Gen Z, millennials? Do you not think like that has gotten better? That type of
Well,
profile.
I'm talking about it as it is in 2023. Not only 2023, I'm talking about as it is like 2 months ago.
Mm,
One of the organisations I sort of freelanced with, right? We were brought in there to what's the word, to change things, right? So we looked at their employment their recruitment processes, and so but they wanted improvement. You've got to give them credit for that. As an organisation, they wanted improvement. But the bottom line is, right? The bottom line is, right? Just because they anonymise their application forms, really, and don't get me wrong, it's a hard one because you want to know what university they went to, or do you? We stress to them that actually is it the university that they went to or the qualification that counts? That So in other words, if they've got a master's in I don't know, God knows, in history, and they've done writings, they've had things published. In other words, if they're fulfilling all your criteria, what does it matter what uni they went to? And so there is also the racism about the fact that these Africans, they've got lower standards, so we're going to have to upskill them. Da 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 da. The idea is, and which is that's just pure racism. That's all that is. If you're going to say, if you read the course content that they covered at their university, and it didn't fit with what you're going to be doing in your business, but they got the name of the qualification right, but you've seen that the course content isn't there. That's a different business. I get that. They're going to need to be retrained. But if the course content that they covered is exactly the same or better than what you did, right, then why do you need to say to them, you've got to go away and get an English qualification. You've got to go away and do that because you studied in Nigeria. Nah, you got to go. No. Even if you want to be a nurse now, you've got to retrain. You've got to retrain and do it our way because what you do over there is rubbish, even though we know your course content is on point, right? That's just racism. It's just that's just straight looking at you and saying that whatever you are, however long you're going to be, it is going to be inferior to us. That's all that you can't. It's very difficult to look at that in any other way unless you say, yeah, you know what we do is crap. That's the only way
but okay, I
it.
understand that, but can that only purely be on a racial aspect? Can it not be like, oh, okay, the University of, I don't know, Accra just is not up to par with certain standards, so people in this country are going to be curious or are going to, want to see proof that, this person can apply and can join this year of this, whatever they want to study, this course.
Personally, I think proof is valid asking for it. I think that's proof. And I think they should ask for proof as to what the course covered. But you see, here's the thing, Falcon, they don't always do that. In fact, they really do that. Do you know what I mean? They should do that. That's what he said there. Exactly what the reason why we said that is because we think they should do that. Look at the course content. Unless you don't believe the course content and you think the universities are fake, you think the course content is just all made up, they didn't really cover it, and you just think for anyone who looks like you from one of your countries, we just have to just make sure that they're on point because anything you lot. So course content should matter. It should some people do ask for it, but you'd be surprised at how many are just simply not bothered. They're not bothered. You come from there. That's nah. Nothing good comes out of there, and everything that comes out of there requires retraining. And so I think it should be. I want to make it clear. No one should just be believed, right? Which is we're talking at a higher level of hope than what I'm about to say. No one should just be believed for just what comes out of their mouth, because it's just what comes out of someone's mouth, it doesn't really mean much. It's what you do that counts, the things you do, right? And you've got to show evidence of it and proof. But someone's got to ask you about it. Someone's got to consider you worthwhile enough to actually ask for evidence. You're not even worth asking, you are. You and your people, you're not even worth asking. Unless we train you and give you our stamp of approval, our validation, there's nothing you're going to present to me, not one stitch, except for your singing and dancing and winning a race. That's going to mean anything to me. Come on, man. And that's that. I don't. Looking at 2023, right? I see parallels now, right, with 20 years ago and 40 years ago. I see direct parallels. I honestly, I don't think anything's changed. I think there's perception of change. I'll tell you what has changed: the whole woke culture, and the whole sort of making sure people don't say what they're thinking. Right? You're not allowed to say, and that brings us back to Miss Diana. But you're not allowed to say what you're thinking. You have to say the right thing. I don't care if it's right or wrong. What we're asking you to say could be totally wrong, but we think it. The main group thinks it. We know it's crap, but if you don't agree, that's fine. Just don't talk against it, right? That's where we are. But no, I mean, so that's been my personal experience of racism, right? I mean, there's other microaggressions and other people, skinheads doing this, that, and the other. But that's but that's all just one-on-one. I'm talking about system again, like where a system can simply deal with you. There's other ways, man. In housing, when you go to get a room, when you go to buy a house, some people don't even want to sell black family a house. You'd be surprised. And even renting a room out, right? This and this is illegal, by the way. There's, the seller would give the owner would give like Foxton or one of these places just a unwritten message that of who the type of person they want in their place, and you're not going to get it. It will be available until you turn up.
Great points. Something came to my mind, man. It's a bit strange, but I just want to ask it, especially to people in the chat. People in the chat, who pays to play? Who pays to play? But also, kings and queens, great points. Great info as well. But it just came to mind, and since we're hitting the 3-hour mark and it's late, does anyone pay to play in the chat?
Is that a sexual question? Just to be clear, I wasn't sure.
Yeah. It will.
The first thing that came into mind was Nintendo or Sega, but it's not that. That's all nonsense. Okay, just to be clear.
I just, I'm kind of like, I don't know. My mind goes places, right? And I want to, talking about being turned down because you're black for certain things. It's been said that a lot of people say that when they go to acquire the services of escorts, for example, a lot of the profiles will say no black men, please, or no to black men, basically. So I'm just wondering, is that also another, that kind of sexual element? Is that another offshoot of this? I don't know. This kind of racism.
Can I?
Yeah, please.
Okay,
I just have to go there because it's on my head.
All right, so I don't pay to play, yeah, but I did come across, as you said, certain adverts of working women saying that no black men. Now I heard, because I asked a few people to find out because I was curious. So I'm going to be quite curious, and they said it's not that they have an issue with black men at all. In fact, they, outside of business, they'll take the pipe. But in their experience, there's just been too many times where there's been guys that will come, smash, and not want to pay. Yeah.
Grimy business, basically.
Yeah, it's not just one or two, it's a few. So whilst they recognize that it's not going to be all guys, they would rather remove the anxiety. So if they just say, boom, okay, this is like the closest into certainty, I know that I might miss out on business, but at least I won't have the fear of what can happen if they don't pay.
Damn, and that's sad,
Yeah.
When you deep it, it's sad. It's sad that
Because what will happen is this, right? And this is the leverage that you have. Now I'm actually thinking about it in the moment, and you tell me if this makes sense. But basically, from what I understand, prostitutes that are self-employed, that's not illegal, right? However, running a brothel or having effectively a pimp or a madam, I think that might be illegal. That I'm not into. Essentially, what it is that, and this is what I think, and I don't know. Maybe the guy is saying that he will blow up the operation, and so he's blackmailing them and just trying to use whatever means. I'm saying, and this don't account for every instance, but some of these instances where they play but they refuse to pay.
That's a shame, man. That's a shame. It just came to mind, man. It just came to mind. Yeah. So with that being said, man, guys, man, don't be shady with business, man. Pay if you're paid to play, bro. Like, don't be stingy and frugal and all of that. But with that being said, man, I really enjoyed this live. We're hitting the 3-hour mark, so I just would like to ask for closing thoughts or statements. It could do with anything that's been mentioned in this live stream, particularly about Diane Abbott and what she said, and how you feel about the Black British kind of positioning in the UK, or how you feel about how we can overcome racism in the UK. If anyone would just like to leave their closing thoughts, then we can hopefully end the stream on the 3-hour mark. Who would like to go first?
I'll go first, Falcon.
All right, sure. Kings and Queens.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having us up as usual, man, as always. Great conversation. Great to speak with the other guys as well, Diego, and some one or two brothers I've not spoken with before, so so that's been great. I'll just land on this one. Sadly, I don't think racism in the UK, as the UK it looks today, right? I don't think racism is going to be undone here. I think I heard somebody on the radio on TV speak about who was it? It's someone on daytime. I think it was Good Morning Britain or the ITV one. She spoke about on the bit that used to have Piers Morgan, but he's gone now. On the little argument bit, she basically said everything's got to go. The Union Jack's got to go. This has got to go. The St. George flag's got to go. All the royal family's got to go. All of that's got to go. And she was a mixed race woman, black and white, I think, but don't quote me on that. But she said everything's got to go, right? And you've got to start again with a blank slate, and we've got to carefully design or the UK, what the UK is going to be, what the UK is going to look like from the ground up. Right, and obviously you had a few, they pit people against each other. You had a couple of people there saying, no, I like it the way it is. I like the St. George flag. I like the Union Jack. Just because you've got a few bad apples in it, right? I don't think we should let go of what we are and then think of our whole history to go, no, we shouldn't do that. Right, so that was the basic argument. So really, outside of white people that benefit from the system being willing to give it up, right? Then it's going to take going back. If you're talking about the black communities, it's going to take going back to the way we used to do things when we first come here. What did that look like? It basically community cohesion, right? As bad as it was, right? And it was bad. It was awful. But when you've got community cohesion, you don't have to go to their pubs because Mr. Man down the road, he's running a pub, nightclub, community centre in his house, and everyone goes there, and he gets the benefit because he's got to buy food and buy drink. And that was common, right? It wasn't. It was common, right? You go to him to take photographs because he's in your community. Right, and so you spend money with later on. You spent money with not what it's called now, with black businesses in Brixton. Right, you did that. You might have bought your meat from someone else, maybe, but that's another conversation, right? But you did that. The money did go around in your community a lot more, and you saved not in the bank, although you might have had a bank account, but you saved with other black people that used to hold the money. They used to hold the money, right? So that is what community cohesion looks like, right? So, and that's what defeats. That is what, if not defeat, that's what can tell your local politicians and central politicians how things are going to run. Right? It's always community cohesion. And the minute you lose that, right, your community becomes not worth listening to because you've got no base at all. No base at all. I'll end it on this. That book, Low Intensity Warfare, by a man called Frank Kitson, in that book, he talks about how to deal with the enemy within, right? He fought in Kenya, or is it Uganda with the Mau Mau? He fought he employed the practices there, and he wrote the book and everything. He employed the practices in Northern Ireland, fighting the IRA, and that is how he saw all unwanted people, the enemy within in England, i.e., not just black people, but other groups as well. And these communities have all been destroyed. It's the truth. So how can we do what the Jewish people do? So I have to say, and even some of the Indian people do. You know, how can we do that? Our women have to decide to stay in it. You can't have a community of just men. No, you can't. It's not possible. But I'll leave it on that one.
Hey, kings and queens, man. It's always a pleasure having you on with, a treasure trove of information, man. So, and I hope your neck gets better, man. I don't like hearing that you're injured, for real. You know,
Yeah,
hope you do good.
That, man. Thank you. Bless.
Yeah, but right. Yeah, have a good night, man. Take care.
Yep, will do, man. Take care, everyone. Take it easy.
Peace. Okay, salute to kings and queens. Go and check out his channel as well. K&Q in the building. Who wants to go next with closing thoughts? Sharon, you would like to go next with closing thoughts?
Whatever happens, racism in any shape or way isn't really an issue per se. It's what a person can deliver, and what a person can do to that. Today's standards, racism can mean anything, but like a lot of people need to stop using that as an emotional tactic to further themselves down and giving themselves a bad rap. All it does is just make liberals get even more outraged and things of that nature.
Okay. Hey, Shah, as always, it's good having you on. Very clear thoughts today, so I appreciate that. Okay, catch you in the next streams. Okay, peace.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Who wants to go next with closing thoughts?
I'll go.
Sure.
I'm tired. What I will say is this was a good live stream. In my opinion, I don't think Black British people can overcome racism, not because they're victims. It's just the fact is that racism is an ideology, and it's something that is in the mind. You may be able to censor freedom of speech, but you won't be able to censor freedom of thought. So once that thought is there, it can manifest and be spread. So I don't think there is a way to overcome racism, and I'm just talking about racism point blank period. So that's just really that. The best thing you can do is just build and own the things that you have. That's really it. And let the badgers roam free.
Hey, I appreciate. Hey, Jam, it's always a pleasure having you on, man. Great input as always. Looking forward to more of your videos. So check out JM Talks channel as well. Hopefully we'll do our collab in the future. Hopefully, if we can find a good time, we've got a good subject we can discuss pertaining to self-improvement.
Just shoot me up. Just give me a few times and see if we could Definitely.
Sure, no problem. But have a good one.
Yeah. Take care.
All right, peace. Take care. Okay, that's JM in the building. Last but not least, we got Diego Harry in the building with closing thoughts, please.
Yeah, man. Good stream. I appreciate you putting it on. Definitely like a good discourse. With Diane Abbott, I definitely, I don't think she did anything particularly wrong. I think it's quite a murky kind of situation that's arisen. And I'd say that what it reflects is, this ties in with, it's interesting that JM said it, that not being able to actually police freedom of thought, but you kind of can police freedom of speech. The reality is, with Jewish people, or at least any kind of critique or anything that can even be inferred, it's like touch not die anointed. That's literally the implication of saying anything that could be deemed offensive remotely. But then black people are on the other end of touch not die anointed. You can molest the reputation, defame, discredit, and there are a few penalties. I mean, I know the Asian woman got suspended and she got reprimanded, if you will, for or reproached for what she did. But by and large, that's the demographic that can you can easily get away with ish. And in fact, there's so many businesses, right, that have spoken ill of black people, designers, and black people still patronize them and never stopped. Hilfiger comes to mind. I think Gucci's another one. So the point I'm making anyway is that unfortunately she got caught in the crosshairs of wider politics, and it just so happens that certain people who have long disliked her, this is like meat and drink for them, so they're lapping it up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate just because it looks like it's going to be her defining, the media trying to make it her defining narrative, or sorry, her defining legacy rather. So the thing that she'll be most memorable for will be this. And I think that is so damning. It's not fair, because you look at other politicians that have been imprisoned or they've been caught up, and yeah, they don't tend to have been disparaged as much. There doesn't tend to be that kind of that desire to completely, if anything, sometimes they're even given grace. So the point I'm making is that is emblematic of black people maybe not being able to overcome racism entirely, but they can still achieve. It's just that the path of progression may not look entirely conventional. Right. So being agile and open-minded is the path to still achieving fulfillment. It's just going to be something that you have to embrace from an open, with an open mind. And on that note, thanks for having me, man.
Hey, Diego Harry, aka Diego Ife, man. Always a pleasure having you on, man. Great closer as well. Yeah, like I said, feel free. We can, with your book as well, we can do like a digest live or something like that if you want.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Very willing to, to put that on the spotlight, because it's been long time in the making.
Yeah, so it has. It has. Yeah, man, I'll definitely reach out. I'm down.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime, man. Anytime.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Peace. Yeah, no problem. Peace. Have a good one. Peace. Peace. Okay, awesome, man. I think this was a great discussion, man. How black British people can overcome racism. Hey, appreciate everyone who came through, everyone who jumped on the panel, everyone who came through in the live chat, right? Everyone who came through with super chats and super thanks. You're showing support to the work that we're trying to do, right? Even in just a discussion form, right? We're still doing work. We're still bringing people together, still trying to diagnose some of our issues, right? So I really appreciate everyone who keep these streams going. I've got a few videos that might be released this week in the works, a few more edited videos, and I'm planning that I might start doing Sunday streams like before. Back in the day, I did my self-refinement Sunday streams. So Sunday plus Tuesday plus some videos in between. So look out for that. Join the Self-Refinement City Discord if you want to learn more. The links are in the description below. right? Please do like the video on your way out. And again, I just want to say salute to everyone who shows support, everyone who shows, everyone who just comes through and becomes a part of the discussion. Salute to everyone in the building. But here it's 1:30 a.m. in the UK, so we're gonna call it a night, and we're gonna say peace just before I put out the outro. So peace, salute to everyone who came through. See you in the next live.